Go. Hey, everybody. Dr. Dusa here. I'm here with the esteemed and famous and iconic Roger Callard, a friend to all, always with a smile. Great stories and information. We're going to go over a lot of stuff. He's got some really interesting stuff to talk about as far as training goes. Probably dispel a lot of things that you may misunderstand or be on the wrong track about. But Roger's from the golden era of bodybuilding, the early 70s, competed in a 10-year period, won some big shows. Best ever, and that was probably, in a lot of our opinion here, at least in this group, best era ever. But he started as we're going to let him talk about this, but just as a little primer, he started as an athlete at Michigan State University. Some of his lifting records still hold to this day. He was a track athlete and a football player there as well. And then he made his way to California, became a top bodybuilder. Ran his course for 10 years, great career, and then he went into acting, and he's still acting in films and commercials and things like that right now. We were just talking about how when I was up judging the Mr. America in 2015 up in Rochester, New York, we had Frank Zane, Danny Padilla, Ken Waller, Ken Sprague, Jim Morris, and of course Roger. It was like all the guys were up there. It was really cool. Roger ended up singing personally for my girlfriend and I a really good rendition of Papa Was a Rolling Stone. My Denise saw his picture today. She said, "Hey, isn't that the guy that sings really well?" I said, "Yeah, he does all that and more." So I don't know if he'll sing for us tonight. But now he's into acting. He's been in a lot of Pumping Iron, of course, Stay Hungry. Some of the editions of Charlie's Angels on TV. He was in Red Heat with Arnold as well as Twins, Wonder Woman, and he also appeared in the movie Foxcatcher, which had, I think, Channing Tatum and Steve Carell. And that was I think the picture won an Oscar. It was nominated for an Oscar. So you were in that. So you've really done a lot. And I think acting kind of won you over bodybuilding, didn't it, Roger, over time?
Well, I had won the Dramatics Award in high school. My football coach was the drama coach. And he came up to me and he goes, "Callard, are you going to be in the junior play?" And I said, "Well, who's in it?" And he goes, "The cheerleaders." I go, "I'm in." Because there was this one girl that I wanted to get next to you, like the Temptation song. And so I was kind of hooked. And I ended up winning the Dramatics Award, which was voted by my peers in the play, which was like my little Academy Award. And I was kind of smitten by that. But I'd also, before that, I was in the choir. I would sing, and I like to make people laugh, and I would run. And
Roger, if your coach didn't ask you that, would you have been interested in acting, or is that kind of what turned the switch for you?
Well, I was interested in it.
Oh, you were.
But that really kind of consolidated and capitulated where I was going to end up, because I knew I was going to go to California. Because after Michigan State, I had a tryout with the Chargers. So I said, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to play professional football. And then I'm going to go to Gold's Gym, and I'm going to be Mr. America, but I'm going to be in movies. So I had all these dreams. I had all these grandiose plans.
Well, let's start from the beginning. How were those seeds planted? Because you grew up in Michigan, and you started training as early as 5 years old?
I did, because I had asthma. I always had this dream of being the world's fastest human. I was obsessed with it. I mean, I read the Encyclopedia Britannicas about every runner from Dave Syme to Paddock to Bob Hayes. I knew every sprinter that ever lived.
Why do you think speed got into your head as far as different other choices?
Because of power. I was always interested in power.
I see.
I love to hit home runs. I hit like these towering shots. I used to watch Al Kaline and Norm Cash hit these shots, and then later Reggie Jackson. But before that, I would always dream of hitting the ball out of the park or jumping higher than anyone else. Even though I was 5'10", I could stuff a basketball.
Wow.
I had a 48-inch vertical. I used to bruise this part of my arm on the rim.
Wow.
So, Ken Waller said I was a kangaroo. Do you remember did you ever see the desk at Gold's Gym, the original?
I was there. I don't remember though. I was a kid.
I used to jump up on it with one. And Waller called me a kangaroo, and they used to have a jungle gym with cable crossovers, and it was like 10 feet, and there was very few guys that could jump up. Well, I would jump up and grab it and do chins. You
What
know,
would Joe Gold think about that? He was kind of a strict guy, wasn't he?
I did the same thing at his gym,
Oh,
but
did you?
he loved to complain about stuff. He was kind of a curmudgeon when it came to that. But
Yeah,
at
but
that,
if he liked you, you were his guy, right? Wasn't it like that?
if he liked you, he'd let you do shit. But
Yeah.
if he didn't like you, if you dropped a 50-pound weight, he'd be all over you.
Hey, Roger, I don't want to get off course, but see, you're one of the legendary icons, and I've got you here, and it's like opening up a magazine from the '70s talking to you. But what about Vince Gironda? Did you ever deal with him?
Never dealt with him because if I did, I probably would have knocked him out. He was a little. Everybody talks about it. He was the guru, and to me, he was a little smart alcoholic. And I'm not gonna quote my words. And the only reason that he had those guys is because the studio was right next to the studios, and it was a horrible gym.
Roger, I'm glad we're friends because I'm just going to cut in. There's a story with me. I always say I'm going to see Gironda in hell. I'm going to bring him a bottle of blackberry brandy because when I was 16 years old, I went there. I went to California to visit some friends. I was into bodybuilding, 16 years old, in '79 or something, and I went into his place and I approached him tentatively. He was talking to somebody. He didn't look like much to me.
No, it's a supermarket chicken.
Yeah,
a supermarket chicken cut up.
Let me just tell you. I was respectful. I don't even remember what I asked him, but he turned to me and he threw some brochures at me. And he said, "Now get the F out of my gym," just like that. And I was scared. That's what I think of him. I think he's a piece of,
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have great reputations in the business as far as what they did, but you got to remember who are the fans? What do the fans really know about him?
You're right.
They don't know very much. And I can tell you that the gym was like something you'd see in a horse stall here in Michigan.
Yeah. Oh, I remember. Yeah.
It was dark. I mean, I think there was one skylight over the squat rack or something, but you couldn't see in there. It looked like a cow pasture. I'm not going to train in a place like that. And plus, he was very I'm the type of guy, you don't talk to me like that. And if he pulled a stunt like that, I'd probably take him outside. And, he was a little guy. He was 150, 60 pounds or whatever he was. But anyone can be cut up when you're, Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
But when you get up to 190, 200, 180 pounds and you're ripped, that's a different situation.
Hey, Roger, tell me about your brother. Your brother was a little older, like 7 years older, but he kind of inspired you to lift weights, right?
Well, he didn't inspire me. I bugged him so much because he came back from college. He was 20. I was maybe let's see. I was 12, so he was 19. He came back from Michigan State and he'd taken a weightlifting class. And I go, "What the hell happened to you?" He was kind of, filled out, buffed up, kind of like the magazines, the before and after. I go, "What the hell did you do?" So I took a weightlifting class. So I must have bugged him so much that I think my dad told him to get it, or maybe it was his idea. I don't know. But I ended up getting a 12-gauge shotgun, a Stevens single shot, full choke, and a 110-pound set of Ted Williams weights. Had the concrete and the sand in it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, after about a year, I was clean and jerking 165 pounds with one hand at 13.
Wasn't that a record or something? I read about that.
Oh, I was so freaking strong. It was crazy. I was beating guys in bars. They would let me in to arm wrestle them because my brother would charge. He was like my promoter. He would charge guys $20 to arm wrestle me. Well, I'm 13. This is 1963, right? That money, that's probably like $200 today.
Yeah.
And if you're a 25-year-old guy arm wrestling a 13-year-old, you probably think, well, I can beat him.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I beat him both hands, either hand. So I was making $40 per guy, and there'd be guys lined up, and I didn't lose.
Roger, were you run out of any bars after that? I mean, because that was pretty humiliating for those guys.
Well, here was the thing. I was a good pool player.
Oh, God.
At 13. So the local bar, it was called the Red Fox. And I would wear a hat, and I had like a little thing that the cat could lick off. It was like a shitty mustache. and I'd wear a pair of glasses that were clear, so I looked older. And he would give me a glass with ice in it with water, so it looked like I was drinking vodka.
Okay.
So I'd be playing these guys, of course I'd find the guy that was drunk, and I'd play him, and I'd run the table, and finally he'd go over and he goes, "What the hell are you drinking?" And he'd grab my glass. He goes, "This is fucking water." The bartender, he was like Mills, the referee. What's his name? Mills that does this after.
Mills Lane, yeah.
Mills Lane. The bartender would do this, and that meant get the hell out. So I'd go out the back door. Well, then my buddies and I'd be waiting out there, and the guy would come out. He'd be drunk, and his car would get stuck in the snow. So we'd push him out. We'd make another $5.
So you had to have a plan. We have a question here from my good friend and member Gary Miller. In your high school years, were you notably more built and stronger than your typical athletes or the kids you went to school with?
Yeah. Oh yeah. When I came back from 8th grade as a freshman, everybody goes, "What the hell happened?" I gained like 30 pounds that year. And I was squatting, and I was doing all this stuff, and I was beating the seniors in the high school in the 100 at 13 and 12. So yeah, it happened pretty quick. And
Rod, you grew up on a farm. Did you do a lot of farm work, and do you think that led to your strength?
Oh yeah. If you've never baled hay, and you probably don't even know what baling hay is.
I know what it is. I've never.
What it is, but how much do you think a bale of hay weighs?
I think I know that it's about 100 pounds.
No.
More?
It weighs between 70 and 120 pounds.
Okay. Wow.
Now, when you can pick a bale of hay, and at that time it had strings and wire, so you had to grab it with your hands. You didn't even have hooks. You had to grab it, put it on your knee, and throw it up. But you did that all day long.
Wow.
So when you can throw around between 70 and 120 pounds all day long, that's a rite of passage. Now you're a man. Whether that happens at 12, 13, 14, 15. Some guys can't do it till they're 16. Some can never do it.
That'll make it tough. We've got our good friend Troy Zucolato here. Right?
Hey, Troy. I remember Troy.
He says you're one of the first Troy's been on the show. I've interviewed Troy a few times. Troy's a friend, very successful.
Very well.
One of the first bodybuilders I remember when I was young and starting my career. So, Roger, you've had impact for even like other legendary guys. That's got to be cool.
Oh, well, that's the amazing thing is I toured for the Air Force. Reagan went to Arnold's office when he was president, and he said, "Arnold, the guys in the services are clamoring for better equipment, better supplements at the PXs. Can you go around and do a series of seminars at the gyms, make recommendations as to how to improve it with equipment and in supplements, whatever, and then set up an intermilitary competition?" Arnold goes, "I don't know how to do that."
Really?
I know somebody that does. And so I began communicate with Pacific Air Command with a guy named General Verl Reinhardt, and my commanding officer was Dick Cheney. I got my
wow.
But my point is, we kind of changed the look of the military. And I did several tours, which I was decorated. This is a very little known fact. I was decorated twice. And my second tour when I went...
I'm sorry, when you say decorated, what does that mean exactly for people who may not know?
Well, I was given an award for my tour of duty.
Oh, I'm kidding. Okay.
Decorated by the powers that be of the Air Force, the Secretary of Defense and the President.
Wow.
So when I came back my second time, there was this one kid that was following me around. He was like 160 pounds, but he had this like infectious, he was like a little puppy. He followed me everywhere, and he was watching everything I did. So this is 1983. 1985, I go back, and I tour the entire Pacific Air Command from Hickam, Hawaii to the Philippines to Guam, every major base. I'm in Okinawa, and I hear, "Sir, Mr. Callard." And I turn around, and there's this guy. He's like 275 pounds. He goes, "Do you remember me?" And I go, and he smiled, and I go, Rod Carr? He goes,
That was a kid. That was a kid.
yeah. He'd gained almost 100 pounds of muscle.
Wow.
So, yes, there's been a lot of people that I inspired, but there's been a lot of them that I actually changed their whole life.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And this guy was one of them. And we changed the look of the military, and our impact of the 70s in that era changed the look of sports. It changed the look of law enforcement. It changed the look of firemen, you name it. And
Roger, I got to ask you, this is no fault of yours, obviously. You've really made a prolific dent in world history as far as training and physicality goes. But I was reading recently, and we already discussed when you read things, a lot of it's not true, but even still, in the military said, unfortunately, only, 20% of candidates can pass the physical fitness entrance exam for the military now. I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, have you heard that, or?
Well, that was one of the reasons that precipitated the tour that I did, because prior to that, the Air Force proficiency test was the benchmark for conditioning for the military, and it consisted of 0, weightlift progressive resistance type movements.
Right.
So the guys were clamoring for that, and we're in a very sedentary, obese society because, and I don't want to get political, but that's precisely, yeah, I wouldn't want to get political on your show. That is precisely why we're in the predicament that we're in at this very juncture in our time. And do you want to know the main reason?
I do.
Because we're fucking lazy.
Yeah, that's correct.
And we will avoid aggression and confrontation at every level. There's nothing wrong with grandmothers, but we don't want a country led by grandmothers where, oh, he's a fighter. What is a fighter? People say, well, you have a bad temper because you'll fight. No, someone who fights doesn't mean they have a bad temper. Someone who fights means they have a line in the sand that they've drawn between right and wrong, and they will not go beyond it. That was John Saxon's line to Bruce Lee in Seven Blows of the Dragon.
Just passed away too.
Yeah,
I think a couple of weeks ago.
My point is, we would rather comply and adhere to rules than to throw tea into the Boston Harbor.
It's true.
We would rather wear a mask, or we'd rather bend over and jump off a bridge, or whatever we're told to do, rather than not be liked, rather than be criticized, rather than be ostracized, which is what we do. And our whole society, the way we live and the way it's patterned through this media that you and I are doing right now, this impersonal media, we're subliminally being led because we
they produce.
I wouldn't want to say anything on your show so people wouldn't like me. No,
you can say anything you want.
No, I'm being sarcastic.
I know.
And I never cared about being the most liked bodybuilder, but I'll tell you what, I was respected by every single one of them.
We don't have enough of that today. Gary has another question. We can get more into this in a little bit, but in your career from early till today, who are some of the folks you've met that truly made an impact in your own persona? That's a good question.
Well, in the beginning was Kent Keene, because he saw the potential.
You met him at Michigan State, right?
Met him at Michigan State. I actually met Robbie Robinson and Bob Birdsong before I came to California.
Where at? In Michigan?
No, at contest. I competed in a contest in Florida with Robbie, and I competed with Bob Birdsong in Ohio. So, and I had talked to Dave Draper on the phone.
Wow.
I snuck into a party and I went in the back room, used the phone, and Dave Draper was listed. So I called him. So he was Dave was and we became great friends. And so I felt a part of the industry even then. And I wasn't that impressed with everybody because I played football. To me, I was impressed how fast you could run the 40. What was your vertical leap? How many reps could you do with 405? To me, that was a star. I was never starstruck by anyone because of sports. I mean, when you're in a stadium with 70,000 people, there's not a bodybuilding show that can match that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I understand.
It doesn't come close. And again, bodybuilders are not all athletes. They go, boy, there's a bunch of big guys. Yeah, there's big guys and there's big piles of shit. I mean, you can be the biggest guy in the world, but you have no power.
Roger, what do you think about this premise? Lifting weights is athletic. Competing as a bodybuilder is more artistic. Would you agree with that or disagree?
I don't see that.
In other words, is bodybuilding a sport? Would you say bodybuilding is a sport?
I think it's more of an art than it is a sport. Because if it was a sport, we would have to do something athletic. I mean, like they did in the Inception with John Grimmick, and guys walk on their hands and do things like that. But I think as bodybuilding has evolved, and again, I'm going to go back to our era. In our time, your best athletes played everything. They played football, they played basketball, they played baseball. And they became bodybuilders because they were the best built. After maybe a few decades, we drifted away from that. And now it's more of we've gone back to the minuscule subculture again of caricatures.
Roger, do you even pay attention to bodybuilding today?
No.
No.
Well,
I'm a little younger than you. I just turned 57. I know you're about 70, so a little bit of a gap. But I haven't paid attention for a long time.
Age has nothing to do. That's
no. I'm just saying, as far as the timeline goes.
No, but if you
I remember when it was good.
If you get run over by a truck, and you get hit by a truck, do you ask what was the year of the truck? It doesn't matter.
Right.
If it's a Corvette, it's a classic. My point is, we've drifted away from athleticism, and we've gone to a minuscule subculture, which we were in the beginning.
Regress.
We've gone back to something that people look at with kind of, not
dubious,
not envious, but
dubious. They look at it in a dubious way.
Yeah, very dubious. Like, what the hell are they doing?
I'm going to contrast you with two other guys, and you all have something in common: the Mr. Michigan title. Tom Platt, Samir Banu, and you've all won the Mr. Michigan title. That must have been right around the same time. Is that true?
No.
That was your first win, I believe.
No. I won the junior Mr. Michigan. I'd won a couple other shows.
Okay.
But I'd already gone by the time those guys came.
Okay, they were after you.
And of those two bodies, the only guy that I see similar to me is Samir.
Samir, yeah, I agree.
And Samir will tell you the same thing. I beat Samir at the international. He never forgot it. And oh yeah. Well, see, you didn't even know, but because they don't publicize that. And I'm the reason there's 4 categories.
No kidding.
In bodybuilding.
Why? What happened with that?
What happened with that? Weider used to send 2 heavyweights. He sent Mike Katz and Ken Waller and Robbie Robinson.
Right. The 75.
And then the next year when I was supposed to go, who does he send? Cal Skulak, Mike Menser. Right?
Yeah. Huh.
Because he didn't want to admit that Cal was better than Mike because Mike was working for him.
Right. Cal beat him.
Joe loved the big guys.
Yeah.
So he sent Mike Katz could never beat Ken Waller. I mean, that body belonged to I love Mike Katz.
Mike's one of my good friends. Yeah.
I know, but his body belongs to 5 different people.
What's that?
His body belongs to 5 different people.
His parts are a little incongruent. That could be. Yeah.
He's a great guy. It has nothing to do with Mike. I love Mike.
No, I understand.
Mike and I were roommates. I'd tell Mike to his face. It's like, guys look at Louis' picture. Louis should have won Louis could never win Mr. Olympia.
Not against Arnold, no.
Not against any of those guys.
You don't think if Lou kept training and didn't take
no, it has nothing to decide. When you go to the zoo, do you go there to see the hippopotamus and the elephant? Is that what you want to see? The biggest? Is that what you want to see?
I don't know.
Well, that's what most people want to see.
That's true.
That's why they love big guys.
Yeah, they love the extreme. You're right.
But those big guys are not the best bodies. The pound per pound animal in the world is the jaguar.
Roger,
he's got a stronger jaw than the lion.
Let's backtrack because you've got so many pearls here. So you did well at Michigan State. Did Joe Weider bring you out to California? Did Joe Weider? Did you come to his attention?
No. I went out because I had a tryout with the Chargers.
Okay, you mentioned that.
And then once I saw what I knew already, and the writing was on the wall that football was just a political game as well.
Really?
You were just a piece of meat. You know, when a guy's laying on the ground, he's writhing in pain, and he's a draft pick, and he's hurt, he's injured bad, and the coach is straddling the guy, calling in the next guy.
Wow.
What does that say about a guy who's trying out for the team? You know,
it's not too good, right?
Well,
were you planning on?
That was the game.
That didn't work out, and you stayed though. So you were planning. I read somewhere you went out there with $200. Was that correct?
I was correct. I had one piece of gray Samsonite luggage.
That's it.
Yeah, and a lot of determination but you see, people today don't have that. They worry about too many things. They're thinking about money. They're thinking about this, or where am I going to stay?
So when you hit goals, when you were out there, they already knew who you were, a lot of the guys, right? Because of your
well, I'd already had an article in the magazine. Because when I walked in the gym, Arnold goes, "Oh, look, it's the guy with the big shoulders and the mustache."
Oh, Arnold said that's the first thing Arnold said to you?
So he injured his leg in Hungary. The stage came apart. A lot of people thought he'd never train again. And I had hurt my back at Michigan State. I went back and hurt it deadlifting. So I walked into the gym, and Arnold had a cast up to his hip. It was all the way up, and he was doing concentration curls, bent over, holding onto the rack with one arm and doing concentration curls.
I'm sorry, Roger. Was that from the makeshift platform he built at a guest posing and it collapsed?
He didn't build it, but
no.
It came apart because he did like a kneeling pose or something, and the thing just went apart.
Wow.
And the knee was ruined.
Wow.
And it was very bad. And a lot of people thought that was it. And I looked over at him, and Arnold would have this look on his face of complete focus and concentration. And that's one of the things I learned from him, was how to just I knew how to focus and I knew how to work hard. But with him and Frank Zane, I developed a laser focus. And I looked over, and he had this look in his eyes, and he's doing concentration curls. And he looked over at me with one eye like this. And I go, "You're coming back, aren't you?" And he goes, "Let's train." So we started training, and we would do legs together because I had a bad back and he had a bad knee. So we would, I don't know if you've ever heard this story, we would squat on the Smith machine with our feet out in front of us. So that when we came down, the pressure was not on the knee, it was more on the thigh, because if you put your knees out in front of you, the weight not directly over your knees. So from doing that, we were starting to bend the rods on the Smith machine, and Ken Waller was the manager. So when Ken wasn't looking, we would slide a 25 on, and then slide a 45, and then put a 25 behind it and another 45 over it. So it looked like we had 225, but actually we had 275.
Why didn't you want Waller to see that?
We were bending the fucking machine. We were bending the rods when we would squat, because we're pushing back with 275 or what. Sometimes we'd throw another plate under there. And so we'd have like 315 pounds on there, pushing back and going up. So you're like pushing at a backward angle. You're bending the rods on the Smith machine.
Roger, let me present something to you. Talking to Mike Katz, we're last Super Bowl party we went to a few years ago. And I asked him, because he's from here, Connecticut, and, you know, he played for the Jets for a brief spell, and, you know, he's a luminary around here. But I said, Mike, when you went out to train, because he would go in the summers because he taught school, and then he'd have the summer off, and he'd come out with you guys in the summer. I said, how is it different training with all the guys at Gold's, Arnold's, and everybody? He says, well, I'll tell you how it was different. This might tie into what you're saying. And then, Gary, I got a question from you. I'll get to it in a second. He said, you know, here in Connecticut, it's cold. It would be a plodding, methodical workout. It would take 4 hours. We'd go slow, heavy, take 3-4 minute breaks. He said, go out there with Arnold. The intensity is built in. It's almost like cardio. It's an hour and a half, no stopping. Did you experience that also? Was that a difference for you?
It's not almost like cardio. It was cardio.
It was.
When you're doing extended sets, all you're doing is you're prolonging the inevitable. The inevitable is that you knock them. In bodybuilding, you're Mike Tyson. You go in, you try to knock the muscle out in the shortest period of time. X times the shortest duration times the greatest intensity equals the greatest growth. The longer you prolong it, the more sets you do. That doesn't mean you're going to grow more. That just means you're going to tear the muscle down more. If you plotted your growth on a graph, Michael, and you were doing all these extended sets, you'd have high peaks, but you've had very deep valleys. But now you got to come back up because you have those deep valleys because you've torn the muscle down so far that now you got to build it back up because you, in your mind, you think, well, if I do more, I'm going to grow more, right?
Yes.
Wrong. Totally wrong.
How would you guys know that you did enough? Was it instinctive?
Because you know, when your car's hot and it's you don't need to warm it up anymore, you can shut it off. You don't need to keep driving it. Once it's reached its optimum level. Now, if by the same token, if you knock the muscle out in the shortest period of time, you have high peaks and your valleys are very shallow. So you're going up and down and up and down. Your plot of your graph goes like this. It doesn't go up and down and hardly go up because your body's rebuilding. You're allowing it time to rebuild.
You know, Roger, listening to you, you're more of a, and I'm not patronizing it, it's true. You sound more like the deeper thinking man's bodybuilder.
Well, that's what we were. Frank Zane.
Let me just tell you, in regards to Arnold, it's been said many times, when he first came from Europe, he was very sloppy. He was like a European power type of sloppy training. Did you help put a rein on that, or was he already more controlled when you got with him? As far as
I can tell you this. You know what Arnold used to say to me? You go, Raja, when you're in the groove, you can do anything. Once you get in the groove.
The groove.
What does that tell you?
The zone.
That not the zone. That's like every rep is the same as the other rep. It's like a professional golfer hitting 1,000 shots and they're all landing, you know, an inch from the cup. Precision is as important as anything else in training, especially in training.
Yes.
If your single individual rep is not perfect, then when you add that up in a year with half-ass reps, where are you? As opposed to a year of every rep is perfect.
I want to get into what we talked about separation. Let's get to Gary Miller's question here. He saw you, of course, in the Weider magazines during those bodybuilding years. Did you get a chance to meet some older champions such as Grimmick, Reeves, Chuck Sipes, or Harold Poole? Anybody like that?
Absolutely. I was late for the 1972 Mr. America that Steve Mahalik won, and Ralph Countryman was the head judge. He was kind of an ass, believe it or not. And they wouldn't let me in because my application was late. I brought it in that day or something. I was pissed off. I think I would have won best legs or whatever, but John Grimmick saw me and he goes, "You're going to be great." He goes, "Come with me." And I go, "What the hell is he doing?" We walked all the way back, Michael, to the back of the auditorium. He goes, "Look at the stage." I go, "Why?" He goes, "This is where you pick the winner because you can't see it up front." And sure enough, he goes, "Look at the calves, look at the waist, look at the shoulders, look at the silhouettes." And I used to look at a silhouette of Sergio, and I thought I would think the same thing. When you're on top of something, you're not objective because you're kind of overwhelmed by what's going on. But when you step back and become objective, which is the true meaning of being objective, now you see the form and the shape and how it relates to the other competitors, not just the individual.
You know, you mentioned something that was intriguing to me, contrasting, you know, because we talked before we go live here, and contrasting the physiques back in your day with the detail and the separation. Like Zane says, it's not who's biggest, it's who's most complete. And I appreciate that. But reading this, you believe that technique beats weights in almost all cases. You focused on muscle contraction and smoothness of the movement during your prime training days, and because of that you were never injured. But you kind of segued from that and said the guys today throw the weights around, and that's why they have no muscle separation. Can you expand on that a little?
The only time you have opposing muscle group against opposing muscle group is at the rock bottom of every exercise. In other words, when your arm is as far back as it go in the tricep, when you're all the way down in the squat and your hamstrings are against your calves, when you stop in that position, that's the one position where you have hamstrings against quads. That's the one position where you have tricep against bicep. Now, if you lunge and use impetus body movement to get it moving, you've just missed the greatest aspect of bodybuilding, which is separation. There's been a lot of great bodybuilders, but there's been very few who have great separation. And the reason they don't have separation is because they don't pause on the bottom.
It's got to be something, because, you know, these days they're gigantic, but there's not a lot of detail.
Well, the other reason is you'll never develop the muscle from the insertion if you don't go all the way down. Take a mouse trap. Take that mouse trap and set it. And now screw it down to a piece of wood. You've just magnified the snapping power of that mouse trap by 2 or 3 times. In every exercise, there's a mouse trap. There's a place where you can't come up. And where is it? It's at the rock bottom of every exercise. But what do most people do? They throw the weight up, because from here to here is our strongest position. Once the weight is more than halfway up, you can get your body, you can move your elbows and change the leverage and do all kinds of stuff, and you can get it up, but you're cheating. And people think, well, I'm training heavy. You're not training heavy. You're actually training lighter, because you're pushing the weight around. And then in their mind, they think, well, if I use a lighter weight, I'm training lighter. No. If you train strict and use a lighter weight, you're engaging more muscle fibers, but you're engaging them in the actual movement that you're doing, and you're developing the muscle from the insertion point. See, weight training is an anomaly. In every sport, we're taught to do things the most efficient and easy way. In bodybuilding, it's the antithesis of that concept.
Correct.
We have to find the weakest position, and I'll put a top on this ice cream cone that you will like. We have to find the weakest position and then develop the muscle from that position. You see?
Would you say in your training you followed that back in the day? In other words,
absolutely.
The exercises you didn't like were the ones you really had to hit, because those are the ones that gave you the best results.
The only way you become a complete bodybuilder is that you focus on your weaknesses, not on your legs or your arms. I mean, some of these guys, all they ever post is stuff of their triceps. I'm not going to say their names, but we know who they are. It's always about their legs.
Yeah, I see it.
This shit about people go, Roger, what was your best body part? All of them together.
There you go. Yes.
Why was Samir at 187 pounds maybe the greatest Mr. Olympia we ever had? Because he was proportionate. Nobody goes up on stage and measures you or see how strong you are.
Roger, would you agree? I judged for many years, and it came down to this: if somebody didn't have any, if they were very good and they had no body parts that really stood out, that kind of defines what you're talking about because everything was in harmony. If something really stood out, it was probably in disproportion.
I'd rather be known as a symmetrical bodybuilder than somebody who had big arms or a big chest or a big. To me, that means nothing. That's not bodybuilding. That's a freak show.
Like Tom Platz, as nice as a guy, the legs.
He's a set of he's a pair of legs that nobody has ever been a match to.
Right.
And I kind of created that monster because he looked at that record of 50 reps with 300 pounds for 4 years.
Tell us about that. So you had judges there. They were giving you the green light or the red light.
There were 5 judges. We had an odd lift contest. We had power lift.
Roger. But hold on. Tell us the year. It was at MSU.
It was at MSU, 1972. There were many people there. The intramural building was right next to the wrestling building. By the time I got to 40 reps, the place, there was like 200-300 people in it.
So it's 305 pounds on your back. 315. I'm sorry.
300 pounds for 50 reps.
50 reps.
Full squats with 5 judges with lights. I had 50 green lights.
Wow.
And the Breslin Center, the guy's son, Jack Breslin's son, Jay Breslin, was on the football team. He was there. There were many notable Michigan State. Joe DeLamielleure, the All-Pro,
Oh, wow.
Hall of Fame. They were all there watching.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, because their teammates, going for this record. But that record has stood since 1972.
Platz wanted that? Did Platz go after that?
I'm not going to say that's what he wanted.
No, right.
He was well aware of who I am. And
right.
If you look at his early career, he emulated a lot of things that I did, although he never admitted it. But I think if you pressed him, he would.
When he came out to California, did he seek you out?
Absolutely. When Arnold met him, he goes, Roger, I just met this guy from Michigan. He wants to be just like you. I met him in Florida. His name's Tom Platz. But who does Tom talk about when he does an interview? Arnold, Arnold.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys are what I call star fuckers.
What's that mean?
A star fucker?
Yeah. What do you mean?
Who, goes to a party and they want to talk to Clint Eastwood or they want to talk to Sly Stallone. They don't care about anybody else. They just want to talk to the stars.
Yeah, they're oblivious. Roger, what do they get out of that, do you think?
Well, it enhances self. If I say that Arnold is my hero or this guy's and that's what people always want to talk to me about is my relationship with Arnold. And they go, well, wasn't Arnold your friend? And I go, Arnold was my friend, but I was his friend too.
What did we say about that before we went on? I don't do that. We will talk about Arnold as it relates to you.
Well, I think there was a lot of people in the gym at that time. Arnold was focused out as one of them. But there were a lot of guys who looked up to me and Bill Grant and Frank Zane and Franco Colombo and Denny Gable and Bob Birdsong. And it's like watching a reality TV show. Or a movie. You bond with certain characters. It's called character development in script writing. It's a trick that will make Michael Dusa associate with one of the stars. Maybe it's Mike Katz, whoever it is. You relate to that person. He's from where you are. He's your friend.
Fundamentally, there should be nothing wrong with that, right?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it. But when you constantly seek out someone that is a star and always talk about them as, your influence, I don't think Arnold was completely Tom Platz's influence.
Look, let me ask you a question about Arnold because I've heard this. Do you think there were some guys in that era that actually were perhaps better than Arnold. They just didn't get the marketing behind them.
Who?
I don't know.
Are you talking mine?
I actually heard
You work in psychology, right?
What's that?
Do you work in psychology?
I'm not a psychologist. I play one on TV, and I'm only kidding.
Right.
I say that in reference to you.
Now you're scaring me a little bit, because who was this guy, and what rock did he crawl out from under? And here's the other thing. They always talk about 1980. Well, Mike Menser should have won, or Mike Menser could never beat Arnold.
Not in that show, though?
Barely. No, not in that show. Because, you know why, Michael? You're judging Arnold on Arnold's condition in 1980.
No, Raj, I'm not judging him. I'm just I just disseminate information.
You're looking at pictures, too.
No, I have.
And
listen, I'm going to tell you something. Let me just tell you. I interviewed Samir, who's a ebullient, jocular, nice guy.
Wasn't in the show?
No, Samir was in the 80 Olympia. And Samir said
he wasn't.
Raj, let me just tell you what Samir.
Yeah, but
I'm with you. I'm on your side.
Samir said, because the point is, Samir was new to the scene at that time. He was a young kid.
That's true.
What people are judging is Arnold's condition before his 100%.
That's true.
There's no argument he was not at 100% or as good as he was when I was training with him in '74, which I think was his best condition, which nobody talks about, but we were training partners at the time. Okay? But his 80% is still better than all those other guys.
Even that year, yeah.
Even any year. I mean, Mike Menser couldn't beat me if I would have kept training. I beat him 3 or 4 times. I mean,
Menser.
He gets a lot of credit, but it's because he worked for Weider. He was a nice guy. They were a little off in a lot of ways, too.
Roger, we'll get right back to this. This is great. We got a couple of comments from my good friend David Heitzman. He's got a mustache that almost rivals yours, I have to say. He says he's a big fan of yours. He saw you at the last bodybuilding show he went to in the state of Washington a few years ago. Roger is still a stud like me with the strongman mustache, still looking amazing. He says Samir is awesome. Then we got Frank Ferry, a great Masters competitor. I think Frank is 72 and he looks great. One of the people who looked up to you, Roger, is Mick Souza. That's a name from the past. He's spoken very highly of you. Mick was great. Mick won the, I think, the AAU America.
I let him stay at my house.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, he ran my phone bill up to about $200 and never paid me.
You're talking about Mick Souza?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Sorry about that, man.
Well, Mick, if you have $200, send it to me because by now it's probably worth about $1,000.
Yeah, if my MTFU fund was a little higher, I would just write you a note on his behalf. I didn't know. I think you told me that when we did one of our interviews years ago.
I told you that because it's true.
Didn't Mick stay with you when he came out there? You gave him a place to stay?
That's what I just told you. I opened my house up to him and his girlfriend, let him stay there, and he'd been calling his mother or whoever he was calling, and my phone bill was like, and he left the day the rent was due.
Oh.
And that has nothing to do with his bodybuilding acumen, but to this day, he owes me $200, and if I saw him, I'd collect it from him.
Yeah, I just wrote something, Roger. I wrote, I had money, I had friends. I gave my money to my friends. Now I have no money or friends.
Well, I'm the kind of guy who calls a spade a spade. You know,
I noticed. I like that. You and I can hang out. I'm the same way.
Well, I don't worry about being popular or liked because it doesn't mean anything.
That's not a life of truth. You'll be miserable if you try to.
When I look in the mirror, I know who I am. You know.
Right. Very important.
And I know a horse can run 60 or 70 miles an hour, whether Google says it or not. And Google doesn't know everything about us. And I love our fans, but fans should kind of hold back their opinions about, things because they weren't there.
Right.
And they don't really know that much about what went down. And to try to compare body. If you want a fact, Robbie and I competed in '76 at the Mr. International.
Hold on. Hey, Roger, hold on. Hey, Frank, you're always welcome here, as is Mick, and he speaks highly of Roger, as we all do. And
tell him to send me $200 to P.O. Box 32, Oakley, Michigan. I'm serious. Because
No, I believe.
if I see you, I know you can high jump, but I don't think you can outrun me, and I will get something. But anyway, back to where we were.
Greg Boyd played 9 years in the NFL. He's been in a couple of movies too. He looked up to Roger Kallad. Greg, I'm sure you mean that you look up to Roger Kallad, because Roger, even though Roger's, born in 1950, Roger, if he were my patient, if Roger was sitting in front of me and he were my patient, I would write, patient appears much younger than stated age. We'll talk about your longevity in a bit, because you're still going strong. You're still
Greg Boyd and I were friends with Bubba Smith and Cody Smith. And Greg actually went to San Diego State, where I tried out with Don Coryell with the Chargers. But Greg ended up playing with
Raiders,
the Denver Broncos, and the Raiders. And he was a great player. He was a great guy. We had so much fun together. And he's just one of those guys from my past that, we never forgot. We were friends with Al Cowlings, who messed up in the OJ thing.
OJ's chauffeur.
He wasn't OJ's chauffeur.
No, I'm kidding.
He was the guy who got thrown under the bus for what OJ did, and it ruined Al Cowlings' career. Because if you came to me and you said, I killed my wife, I'm going to run off to Mexico, and let's hop in my Bronco, and you go, Raj, you can't go to Mexico. I got to take you back in my white Bronco. And now you end up being the bad guy.
Well, if you were my friend, I would try to help you. I would try to help you.
He tried to help him too, but what did it do for Al Cowlings?
Right. Well, but you knew Greg Boyd. I
know Greg Boyd very well. We talk very often.
He's a nice guy.
I would like to extend my condolences to him, because he lost his eldest son.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that. Sorry about that, Greg.
Greg is one of the most beautiful, lovable people, an anomaly, like me, sweet, kind, soft, sensitive, but tough.
But can he carry a tune like you do?
Maybe.
Okay.
I think he can, actually, because I think he did do some singing.
He's got a lot of talent.
He's got a lot of heart. He's a good man.
Roger, so when you were in the midst of bodybuilding and you're fighting for these titles, and you won the USA, you won the International, the America, they didn't let you compete one year, and you got in shape, and that's before you. Bob Hoffman, if he was still around, he was a louse. But were in your head, what were you thinking to get out of bodybuilding? You saw what Arnold was doing. He used it as a vehicle. But how about you at this stage when you were in the thick of it?
I knew I was going to get into the acting, and that's one of the reasons that Arnold always took me with him when he'd go to an acting class, or when we went to an agent or a manager or a publicity agency. We went to a company called ICPR, which at the time was one of the biggest promotional corporations. And we go in there, and the guy that ran it, his name was Mark Landia, very famous.
Was that like an agency, like to get an agent or something?
Not to get an agent. It was a publicity agent.
Okay.
A publicist.
Okay.
And if you don't have a publicist, if you don't buy into the game in Hollywood, you don't become that's why I didn't become a big star. I was as good of actor, if not better, than all of the guys, but I didn't play the game. So we go in, and Arnold goes, "What do you do?" And Mark Landia said, "Well, Arnold, we write and say things about you that if you said yourself would sound braggadocio. We put you on the right side of issues. We put you on the right talk shows. We elect presidents, governors, kings, you name it. What do you want?" And Arnold goes, "I want everyone in America to know my name in a year."
Wow. Roger, what year was this? Do you remember the year?
75, 76, something like that.
Okay, so
it was about $2,000 a month.
Wow, that he had to pay.
That he had to pay.
It's about $10,000 now.
So what happened was, I love Arnold. He's like a brother, but he's not Othello.
No,
he's not, Anthony Hopkins, but He's charming in the junket. He's charming in the interviews. He's charming on Carson and Leno. I grabbed the rat. He could say anything, and it was funny. It was cute. We overlook a lot of things when people look great.
Yeah.
I mean, Stallone, he's a good actor. He's not Laurence Olivier either, but he looks good.
Yeah.
A lot of the actions, Van Damme and all the guys. I mean, we don't watch them for their acting. I heard of something a long time ago, and it made a lot of sense. He goes, stars are the same in every movie they do because people come to see them do that. Like John Wayne, it was his rhythm. Clint Eastwood,
Hey, Roger, in acting in that industry, what is more important if you could weight one more than the other? Would it be image or ability?
It's neither. It's the publicity.
Oh, really?
It's okay. The machine behind you. If people aren't talking about what you do, the quantity and the quality of it doesn't mean as much. It's like our society. When we write something and we get 500 likes on your show, obviously it's drawn attention, right?
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of people tonight.
Have we?
Oh yeah, and I didn't even.
What the hell's wrong with you people? Don't you have anything to do besides?
Roger, we'd have a lot more. I usually promote these for a week, but I got you yesterday, so people don't even know you're on right now. So you're doing good.
I might sing a little bit, or you never know.
I'll have you back. We can do anything we want here. That's the beauty of it.
But if you don't have that political machine and the promotion behind you, it's like if I lie to you for 12,000 years and I suddenly tell you the truth, are you going to believe me?
No.
No. It's the same thing with any type of political promotion or whatever. It's kind of.
Let me read this line that I read that Arnold spoke. I read this many years ago. He said, "It's not who you are; it's who people think you are." What's your take on that?
Well, that's a crow on a fence.
What's that mean? Is that a farm term? Don't forget, I wasn't baling any hay when I was a kid.
That's part of your problem there, back.
I got a lot of them.
A crow on a fence is waiting to see which way it has to fly. And it flies the way that public opinion goes. Some people are who people think they are, and some people are who they think they are. Now, I'm who I think I am. I'm not who what people perceive me to be, because very few people know how I grew up or what I will fight for, what I stand for, because I don't reveal that side of me.
Somebody just got really excited here with a bunch of exclamation points. It's Roger Callard with about 8 exclamation points. He's been the man in bodybuilding forever. Well, David Heitzman, I will say this. We fight the man. But we appreciate that. But yeah, he is all that. I got a lot of fans. Roger, because I think you guys from back in the day carry this austerity that guys now don't really. I'm not busting on guys today. I mean, you could take guys who played in the NFL in the 1920s with the leather helmets. Can't put them against the guys that have the RoboCop equipment now. So I'm not really doing that. But you guys carry, there's like this guard of like 20 of you that I could name, and you're. Like I said, it's amazing to be able to talk to you because it's history, that we could tap into.
Did you ever see a 65 Corvette?
Maybe. It doesn't come to mind. Why?
It's a classic. It's timeless. It doesn't matter if it's new or it's old. But a 65 Corvette will be a 65 Corvette in the year 3000.
Still a cool car to have now. Right.
My point.
Yes.
The classical body, the complete symmetrical body, whether it's Muhammad McElway, Lee Labrada, Roger Callard, Samir Bannout, Frank Zane, Arnold, that body type will be a classical body type forever.
I think people would rather look like you than some of the guys now. Roger, being developed as you were as a bodybuilder, when you got into Hollywood, did that help you, or did they tell you to did you have to lose some size? I remember Dino De Laurentiis telling Arnold he had to lose 15 or.
That's like the Dodgers telling Steve Garvey he had to, get smaller. It's a myth. My coach, George Perlis, came up to me in the 70s and he goes, "Callard, you're getting too big." I go, "George, I have one of the highest vertical leaps on the team. I'm one of the fastest guys on the team. I'm not muscle bound." He walked away scratching his head. Well, he was the defensive coordinator for the Steel Curtain for the Pittsburgh.
Wow, yeah, I remember Perlis. Yeah. Is he still alive?
No, he just passed away. But he made an ideological 180 as far as weight training. And if you remember, the Pittsburgh line had to bench with Webster, had to bench 500 to be on the line.
Very strong, huge. Yeah. One of the first huge, truly huge muscular lines. And those guys didn't have Webster.
But what probably hurt me more was my association with Arnold, because Arnold was more well known than I was, even though I was into acting. I did my first movie in '73 with Kurt Russell.
Which one was that?
It was called The World's Strongest Man.
Oh, Disney movie. I love that. Yeah.
But
what part did you have in that?
I was one of the weightlifters. I was a Polish name, but my point.
Roger, was that fun?
It was a lot of fun, and I met Kurt Russell, and we became friends, and it was just it was a wonderful experience, and that was really what kind of fueled my flames to really get into it. But hanging around with Arnold were a lot of stuntmen and cigar smokers and guys who they all talk about how they're friends with Arnold. Well, they wanted
wait, I'm sorry. What's a cigar smoker? What do you mean by that? Like a guy just hanging out?
A guy hanging out with a guy who's rich, and
right, okay,
he'd have a cigar night, and everybody would come to cigar night.
I gotta tell you, I hate those guys.
I hate those guys too. That's a star fucker. That's a guy who just wants to be around somebody who's rich and famous.
They don't do anything.
Famous. They think that it enhances, and if they tell a story about how this guy and I did this, or Roger and I did that, they think in some way that enhances self. What it really does is take away from self and puts the focus on the person.
Right.
You're friends with Arnold. Well, Arnold was friends with me.
Right. I agree.
If you don't have the self-worth of self, then we're a country of star fuckers. We're a country of everybody wanting to be like Brad Pitt and be like this guy instead of being themselves and being happy with who they are.
The thing is, when you are you, there is no competition. When you're trying to be somebody else, it's never going to happen.
Well, you asked me the question, who is your greatest competition? Me. Because guys would come up to me and go, "I'm going to beat you in the next show." And I go, "Buddy, if you're focusing on me, you've already lost."
You tell them that?
Oh, yeah. Because it's like in a boxing match. If you're trying to knock the guy's head off and I want to kill him, I want to beat him, you're going to lose. You're going to make a mistake.
I got a Mike Katz story to go back to, but I just want to ask you a question. You mentioned him.
Get off the Mike Katz trip?
No, I've got a Mike Katz story that relates to your George Perlis story. But no, you mentioned earlier, I think at one point, was it true? I could be wrong. I often am, but that's why I have you here. That Weider was starting to promote you and
Denny Gable?
Yes. Was that true? As the two guys that were up and coming and were going to be like the replacements for Arnold and those guys?
Yeah.
So did you train with Denny? Because Denny looked great too. I really thought, he could have, I don't know what happened.
We were the young guns. We were the guys who were going to take over.
Right. I know Denny kind of fizzled out. You left for self-explained reasons, better pastures.
Well, I left because I saw the writing on the wall. I got screwed 2 or 3 times, and I said, I'm not going to if I can't get in the ring and knock the guy out and have a decisive victory, I'm not going to leave it up to.
Rod, you made a good point about, because I've interviewed over 100 guys now, and nobody speaks badly of Joe Weider. They got their points of contention, but it does come to a point where he likes the big guys. Now, you weren't a big guy, but you were more of a Zane type of guy. And when Arnold retired,
I was a Zallardneger.
a what?
A Zallardneger.
What's that?
I was a cross between Schwarzenegger and.
All right, that's good. That's good. You're a tweener.
I was bigger than Frank, but I was smaller than Arnold. But when I turned around, everybody would yell Arnold. They all thought I was.
Yeah,
Arnold.
you look like Arnold in the back double bye. But let me just finish. It was said that he liked Zane because Zane actually had more of a common man appeal when he started winning the Olympia, and he wasn't that big. But then he got, then Haney came along and everybody got big again. But your relationship with Weider, did he see you as a vehicle? Did he want to promote you, or what was your relationship with him? Was it extensive or?
It was good, but the relationship with Ben was not, because in 1978 they had the Mr. America and the qualifications for the Mr. Universe 2 to 3 months before the show. And I said to Joe, I go, in what sport do we have the playoffs and then we wait 2 months to play the World Series or the NFL playoffs? I go, in bodybuilding, the timing is even more critical. So what you're doing is you're allowing these promoters to sacrifice our ability. And who's to say if you pick somebody 2 months before a show, by the time 2 months comes around, that guy could be fat as a pig. What's to guarantee that the guy that you pick to be your pick is going to be in shape from 2 months? So I said, fuck that. How do I compete for another country? And Ben Weider, in September, after I won the international, we sat down at the dinner with Arnold, and Ben told me, he goes, you can do it if you get the written express consent from the president of the IFBB of that country, and you're not replacing any indigenous competitor from that country. I went to Sven Ole Thorsen, Denmark.
Hey, Roger, what country was that?
Let me finish.
I'm sorry.
And he goes, Roger can compete for Denmark. I'm all set. I go to the 78 Mr. Universe. I'm in the greatest shape of my life. There's no way Tom Platz or anyone is going to beat me. Ben Weider won't let me in the show because he realizes that I'm going to win. And Oscar State did the same thing.
Jesus.
They let me guest pose. There are absolutely no pictures from my condition in 78 at that Mr. Universe show or mention of it.
They didn't mention it in guest pose.
No, because I would have won and I would have made their selection process look bad.
Did they just try to throw you a bone so you'd be quiet and go away? Or
in Mexico, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I went and knocked on his room, and he goes, well, I'm with President Fortillo. Talk like this. I'm with President Fortillo. I don't have time to talk to you. And I go, you fucking asshole. I go, I came all the way down here. You told me how to do it. And now you're telling me I can't compete? I go, well, I'm guest posing. Whatever you. He swept me under the rug because he knew that I would win.
Was that when
and that was a rebuttal, and Tommy Minicello didn't like me either because I wrote a big article about how we were putting off our decision to an international body as to who was the best individual in each weight class. And I said, if we don't send a guy in the short class, the medium class, and the tall class, we're not sending our best team and our best chances to have the best team. We're putting off our decision as to who's the best to an international committee. If we can't decide who's the best in our own country, how can we expect an international committee to do it? Well, the reason was Joe wanted to send 2 heavyweights. So who did he send? Mike Katz, Ken Waller, Robbie Roberts.
75, right.
Yeah. Then the next year, who does he send? Cal Skulak.
And Mike
2 heavyweights, 2.
Yeah.
And Danny Padilla. Where's Roger Callard? I won the middleweight both those years. Where am I?
Was that 76, the year you won?
I can't remember the exact years, but
I won
the you know, I was the best middleweight, and he sends Cal Skolek and Mike Menser because he didn't want Mike to get beat.
You won it in 78. I just checked here on muscle memory. 78 is the year you won it. And you won the IFBB America in 77.
Right.
And you had Grimkowski and Padilla in that.
Yeah. And Danny was fat.
Was he fat for that?
He was fat. And I was actually ahead in the winning the show. I won the show. And then some stuff happened backstage because the guy running the show wanted a short man to win, and they changed the judging.
How would that benefit them to have the short guy win?
Because the promoter of the show was a short guy.
Isn't that something? Yeah, that's why, you know, then you hear they're trying to get into the Olympics. I'm like, bullshit. Not when you got things like that. Then you won then going back, you won the 75 Mr. USA. So you had quite a run. You won the America, then the IFBB USA, and then the Western America in 76, IFBB Mr. America in 77, International in 78.
But I qualified for the Universe for 2 years. I was the #1 qualifier, and I didn't go. And then the next year, they came out with 4 categories.
They did, right? Yeah, the weight classes.
They did exactly what I wanted and added a weight class.
The way I understood it, Ben Weider propagated that because that was more in alignment with the Olympic system, the weight classes versus
propagated it because I made such a stink. I wrote a big article about it, and Tommy Minichiello was on his side, of course. But I was the one who, you know, made that happen because of what I finally revealed, because people look at it, they go, well, I don't know, there's 2 heavyweights. They don't realize that there was 3 classes. There should have been 1 guy in each class. So Danny and I should have went twice.
Dan Wingham, how are you, pal? Yeah, no, he's one of my favorites too, Roger Callard. But no, Roger, he didn't win the international in 76, Dan. He came in second in 76.
And I beat everybody in the show on a 200-point system. And Robbie beat the Olympia winner, and I beat everybody else. So that should tell you my rank in bodybuilding. That's why people respect me. But they never repeated that 200-point system again, and you never heard that happened. But ask Robbie Robinson.
Let me just finish for Dan because he was asking. And Dan, he won the international in 78 and the IFBB America in 77. So he won basically all the top amateur shows. You did go into one IFBB Pro show in 84. Is this when you kind of left bodybuilding and you came back?
Yeah, I wasn't really into it. I was just I wanted a vacation to Toronto. That's all I could. But
hey, you're in shape anyway. Just drop in. You go grab some trunks, and it's cool when you can do that.
Right.
David has always wondered how Roger Callard, with his physique quality that really stood out, wasn't winning more titles. Thank you for explaining it. Yeah, you know, like you were saying, Roger, we only have the magazines, so sometimes you wonder, like, what the hell? What are they thinking?
Well, if I beat 2 guys that were won Mr. Olympia, I think I did. I was pretty good. I beat Samir and Mike Menser. And I beat all those other names that we know so well. And so did Robbie, you know.
Roger, what was your food like back then as far as training and getting really in shredded shape? What would you do in particular? What was your eating like? I know it wasn't as complicated as they make it today.
No, we ate good. We ate clean. And we had 1 day a week where we'd eat cheesecake or whatever we wanted. But we ate good. We drank water. We drank pink grapefruit juice and chicken, tuna, you know, lean meats.
I also think one of the keys is you guys didn't get in terrible shape between shows. You didn't gain like 50 pounds.
Well, that was one of the things that Arnold and I kind of forerunnered was everybody. Let's say you have a rock. I'm a man of analogies because they make you think. If you have a rock and that rock is a ripped body, why would you pile sand on it during the off season and then remove the sand during the season. Why wouldn't you keep the sand off the rock and just add a little bit onto the rock? And that's one of the things that Arnold and I and Zane and from our era we figured out is if we are in shape 3 months before the show, in other words, we're lean, maybe a little lighter, but lean. Now, those 12 weeks, we add 4 or 5 pounds, 3 pounds, whatever, of muscle. So we come into the show full. We don't come in drawn and like, look the face of death.
Yeah.
Full.
You guys would actually gain weight towards the show.
Gain weight.
Amazing.
Plus,
a novel idea.
It's like a fighter, Michael. How long can a fighter hold a weight?
True.
If you're walking around 170 pounds and you're fighting welterweight 148, you're losing almost 22 pounds. You got to hold that weight. You can't hold that weight and hold that endurance and that strength for very long. Well, a bodybuilder's the same way. If you're cutting down the way most of them do and restricting calories and fluid, you're basically setting yourself up for an anaphylactic shock is what you're doing. And I've seen guys get cramps in their midsection, walk-offs. They take Lasix and all these diuretics, and
not to mention what it does to your overall health.
It's an backwards approach to an objective. If you're trying to build a sculpture, why do you keep putting clay on it and taking it off?
Vicious. I did it for years in the 80s. Dan met you in 1976 in Ohio. Was that before you went to California?
No, I was in California in 72.
All right, maybe you were out there doing a seminar or something. He says he met you in Ohio in 76. A guy named Dan Wingham.
Oh, probably met me at Columbus.
Oh, yeah, right, okay. Yeah.
It was in Ohio.
Dan, it's cool you were around for those times. I was still, still in junior high. I think.
Those were great shows. I mean, the original Lorimer Arnold productions were great. I mean, they were. They were fantastic.
Roger, tell me about your wife. You were married to her for a long time.
32 years. 32 years.
You met her how and where?
Interesting story. You've heard of Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs. You know who they are, right?
Of course.
What did they do? Create the Apple computer?
Right.
In 1982, Jobs and Wozniak wanted to showcase a simul-screen projector system that would shoot a 70-foot simulcast next to the stage. To do that, they were going to put on a concert called the US Festival, which was as big as Woodstock in its eventuality. But they were getting a lot of flack from LA County, red tape, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Of course, right.
So what did they do? They went out to Devore near the Grapevine and they bought a 500-acre ranch. And they were able to bypass a lot of the regulations. And our security company, which was called National Event Services, we did all the musical venues. We did the Palladium, the Forum, Universal, you name it. Whatever was going on in LA, we did. So they came to our company and they said, we're going to do a 3-day concert. So my job was to guard that computer. I was one of the supervisors. So I was all around, riding around like MacArthur on my little.
Maybe you can play him in a movie soon.
I could play him. I basically did play him that day. So I'm riding around on this golf cart, and we're eating mushrooms. And I mean, this is 1982. It was a crazy time. And I look across this field, and I see this almost like an apparition walking. And it's just this beautiful Leith. You know how I can be in a gym, Michael, and I don't even have to look, and I can tell you who's training right and who isn't just by the sound of the movement or the look of the movement. I don't have to see them. I can be looking at their back, and I can tell if they're doing the exercise right. Well, when a renowned athlete sees another athlete moving, that grace, the way they walk, whatever it is, it's like watching a racehorse. Some racehorses, you just know they're going to run fast by the way they walk. Well, I saw this woman walking across this field, and she was just strikingly beautiful and graceful. And just walk. She was just walking. And I couldn't take my eyes off her. And the closer she got, she was looking at me. And I'm in shape, and I got a hat on, I'm tan, I'm buffed, and
very confident.
Shirts off, got the stash,
Wow.
I'm ready, And she's about maybe 100 feet away, and she stops. And we're just looking at each other, just looking. And it seemed like time stopped because there were 500,000 people at the US Festival. And I didn't hear a thing.
Wow.
And I kind of went like something like that, or what?
You did that?
I motioned for her to, she walked over. We started talking. I couldn't take, she had these eyes. She had the most beautiful eyes. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of Mimi.
Yeah, I have. Everything you say is true.
But she was as gorgeous inside as she was one of those people who you'd look at because, well, she's beautiful, but no, she was even more beautiful inside. Everybody loved her. I mean, I think people just put up with me, but they come around to see Mimi because
she was sent to you by God. She had to.
There was no doubt.
Yes.
Listen to the story.
I don't believe that. I know that.
Well, we're talking, right? So we're talking, and I go, I got to get your phone number. And she goes, well, do you have anything to write on? I said, well, so I looked in my truck, and underneath the driver's seat, I had my old Bible, which I hadn't read in a long time. And I thought, well, should I let her write in a Bible? It's kind of like taboo, And I said, but I just knew it was the right thing. And I handed her the Bible, and she opened it. She goes, you sure you want me to write in this? I go, yeah. She went to the back page. And I said, well, make sure you write the right number. Because I kind of smiled. Because you know how girls will give you the wrong number.
It's happened to me many times.
Yeah. Pretty much. So she wrote it. And we started talking on the phone, and we'd fall asleep at night talking. She had this very thick accent at the time. She called me baby.
Where was she from, Roger?
She was from Belize near Guatemala.
Oh, okay.
Right on the border. Guatemala and Belize, same thing. So we started talking, and we fell asleep, talking. And then finally we dated. And then I think like a week later, her parents didn't speak a word of English, and they were very like Castellano, like the Italians.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's where I live up here.
The mother and her served the father and I coffee underneath an arbor, like they do in Italy. And I had to ask for her hand in marriage like that, or for permission for her to come live with me.
Wait, did somebody tell you had to do that, or you just knew, or?
I knew
Just a couple of comments here. I want you to continue. This is a great story. Giano, from up in Rochester, my Taurus.
Oh, my Taurus buddy.
See, you're among friends here, Roger. I remember Joe.
Oh, yeah.
How are you, Joe?
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Going up in Rochester, crazy times up there a little bit.
Yeah.
Dan says that Roger reminds me of William Smith, Mr. California. He was also a great actor with class. Still is. I don't know if he acts anymore.
Well, do you know something?
You must know William Smith well. He was like rock.
Bill and I were great friends.
No kidding.
Yes. And Bill was a tough son of a bitch, kind of like some guys I know. Bill was the California arm wrestling champ. He was just strong as hell.
Really strong, especially for his size. Yeah.
I knew him very well because his wife's sister lived across the alley from me. And of course, Mike Glass used to have a thing called the Academy Awards of Bodybuilding, and I presented Bill Smith with one of the first awards.
I actually put a picture of you and him up, and Frank Zane. Did you see that?
Yep. Yeah. One of the first inductees in Mike's Academy Awards Hall of Fame was myself, Frank Zane, and Peter Lupus.
Oh, no, kid, Peter Lucas.
We were like the three guys inducted into, and I liked his Academy Awards of bodybuilding. I thought it was very prestigious, and Mike always put on a very elite show.
Yeah, Mike is really creative.
Very, and then later, I gave the award to Clint Walker, and also we presented at that time Steve Reeves and my good friend Frank Stallone accepted on behalf of Sly.
You must have sang with Frank Stallone. You must have.
Frank and I are great. I love Frank. I mean, I hate to say this, but I think Frank is even more talented than his brother. I mean, wow. I love Sly, but Frank is just, he can do anything. I mean, think about the songs he wrote for Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, yeah.
He's still performing.
Still.
We did a Walker Texas Rangers together. He did Barfly with Mickey Rourke. He did 10 Little Indians. So he's had a very storied acting career, writing career, musical.
Some of the soundtrack for Sly's movies, I think, right?
And, you know, you got to know that when you grow up and your brother's with somebody who's even more, that's difficult. It was kind of like, and I'm not going to compare myself, but my relationship with Arnold hurt me as an actor because I wasn't taken seriously.
They thought you were an appendage,
a sidekick, or whatever. In Hollywood, you're categorized, you're pigeonholed, you're typecast. And that's their way of rationalizing who Roger Callender, who Michael Dusa is. If I can put you in a category and I can figure out what it is that you do well, then I can understand you. But if you're Rod Steiger or you're Anthony Hopkins, you're a chameleon. And getting back to what I was saying about stars, when people go to see a star, they always go to see the same thing. With Arnold, it's the quips. With
right.
Clint Eastwood, it's the quips. You know, whatever it is. John Wayne.
Roger, if you can go back to your wife and the proposal there, you were right underneath the whatever it was.
The arbor.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Well, I was actually asking for her hand in marriage, and that she could come live with me. And we became, her father and I, his name was Gregorio Chacon. And Gregorio was a gambler. But he was a guitar player in the union, like the Screen Actors Guild in Guatemala. So he played on the radio. So when we would go down there, he would sit with this flamenco guitar in this beautiful villa, all concrete, that he'd built. And he'd sit there and he'd play till like 2 or 3 in the morning, just rocking, almost like Gato Barberi, playing these very rhythmical Latin song. I mean, just beautiful. And he would just sit there and rock back and forth. And I'd sing with him, and we'd talk about construction. And he didn't speak a word of English, but I had taken Spanish in high school. And of course,
you were able to get by.
I can do more than get by. Yo entiende mucho. Rogelio entiende 2 idiomas.
So how long after that did you get married?
About a year. It was about a year. We lived together for about a year. And I can tell you this, in the entire time we were together, we never had one argument about anything.
Wow.
That woman would live in a teepee if that's where I wanted to live, and I was happy. And it wasn't about me. It wasn't about what I wanted. It was what we wanted. And they say that, you know, you hardly ever meet the love of your life, or it's, you know, opposites attract. Well, maybe in electricity that works, but in life, you can't shoot pool with a rope unless there's tension on both ends. The more things you have in common with somebody, the closer you're going to be and the better you're going to get along. Opposites do not attract. That's electricity. If you want to really be compatible, it's like training for a contest. If your wife or your spouse isn't training and she's out drinking and running around, that's a rough go.
Yeah.
You know,
she did train though, right?
Oh yeah. She ended up winning Miss Central America, or close to winning Miss Central America. She was
Wow.
a great little bodybuilder. Well, we did that tour together for Cheney. We went around all the Pacific.
She accompanied you.
She
Wow.
was with me with the females.
No kidding.
Because not all your GIs are guys.
That's a great experience.
So, we had a wonderful time. So we traveled all over the world. I mean, we did so many things, and then I got her into casting. And her niche, Michael, was she would find the actors that could speak Spanish and English and do those international commercials. So you had one actor.
Oh, wow.
Instead of hiring two different actors for a Spanish part and an American version, she'd find that person who could do the dialect, whatever it was, and then speak perfect English.
That's a great niche.
Yeah, and the casting people would fight over her. The production we had a tremendous business, and then when she was diagnosed with cancer, we had to let all that go.
Can you talk about that, Roger? How long ago was that?
That was in 2007, and by 2010, they said that there was really nothing more they could do for her. And this little 25-year-old girl just blurted it out, like, there's nothing more we can do for you, Mrs. Callard. So
was that a tech or a doctor?
Yeah, a doctor. It was just a tech. So I said, you know what? I didn't say it to her, but in my mind, I said, if I'm going to witness losing my wife, the love of my life, I'm going to go back home. I'm going to go back to the land of the deer and the bear of Rudyard Kipling's Land of Hiawatha. And I'm going to be in the woods and on the farm and where I grew up. And that's who I am, Michael. You say a farmer. Well, farmers is kind of a funny way to put it. I remember a guy from New York one time, he said, farmers are dumb. I go, really? You think farmers are dumb? I said, well, let's do this. Let's do a test. You go grow your own food, and in 6 months, your ideology will collapse on your empty rib cage, and you'll see how dumb farmers are. There's no sticks anywhere. There's no boonies.
No.
When electricity came to the country, the guy on the farm had the same TV, had the same hotel, he had the same phone, he had the same radio, the same information. But we like to denigrate people by demographics and where they live. And you're a farmer, you're Johnny Appleseed. Well, our farmers are what kind of hold this country together. And
there's no doubt.
If you look at the last election, as soon as you got outside of the cities, it was red.
Yeah.
So what happened was the sleeping dogs of America spoke. The people who are not on 3rd Street Promenade, and they're not in Stamford, Connecticut, or downtown New York, or Chicago, or Illinois, or they're the people in the country, the farmers, the outdoorsmen, the hunters, the mechanics, the machinists, the shop workers, the truckers.
Roger, what was your wife's name?
Her name was Miriam, but her nickname was Mimi.
So did you bring Mimi back to Michigan? Is that what you did from California?
I did.
And she continued to convalesce there. And
she got better because I got her into the Breslin. You've heard of the Breslin Center at Michigan State?
I have.
Well, Jack Breslin was the treasurer of Michigan State. His son, Jay Breslin, and I played football at Michigan State. I've referenced him before about the squatting. He got me into the Breslin Cancer Center in Ingham, Lansing, and she did well. She did well for 2 years. And then the last 6 months of 2013, they kind of got aggressive with the chemo, and that just kind of ate her up. She was a small woman, Yeah. But I learned more watching her die than watching any man do anything. And we talk about how strong men are, and we're not as strong as women.
No.
We're not as tough.
No.
have a baby. You know,
Yeah. Hey, that's the truth.
I hate to bring up Bill Cosby, but he said it's easy to have a baby. He goes, take your upper lip and stretch it over your head.
Yeah. He did say that.
Well, think about that. I mean, that they can go through that kind of pain.
You know, all the top trainers that I talk to, they say the women fare in the workouts better than the men because they're more focused on doing things correctly, and their pain tolerance is higher than men.
Well, yeah, I don't know about all of that, but what I do know is that there's a grace in living, and there's a grace when things aren't going so good. And I've never seen anyone who was as selfless as my wife was. When we went to the hospice, I'll tell you a little story about Mimi. And when you go to hospice, you know that you're getting close to the end, and they ask these uncomfortable questions. If you pass out, would you like us to resuscitate you? You know, uncomfortable questions. And the woman turned to Mimi after a few of these, list of questions, and she said, "What are you most worried about, Mimi?" And she was quiet, and she hung her head down. She said, "My husband." She was more concerned about what I was going to do if she passed away than what she was going to go through. And at night, she would wake up and she was in pain. I'd see her sit up in the bed. And I go, "What's wrong?" And she goes, "Well, my kidneys are hurting. I didn't want to wake you." I go, "No, it's okay. Don't worry. It's all right." And maybe 3 or 4 days before she passed away, we were laying in bed, and I told her, I said, "Mimi, I don't know what I'm going to do if I lose you." You know, it was almost like a little boy, crying out and thinking about himself rather than her. And she said, "Baby, I'm dying." And it hit me, and I said, "Are you holding out for me? Are you holding on for me?" And she said, "Yes."
Wow.
I had to give her permission to die. That's how lovely and selfless her love was for me, is that she was fighting not to die just so I wouldn't have to go through it. And I told her, I said, "I love you, and it would be selfish of me to want you to live just because I want it." I said, I want you to let go." And she died 2 days later.
Wow.
But she was holding on for me. She was holding on for me. And
that's beautiful. Like Lance Stranahan said, truly a beautiful story.
Well, I couldn't talk about it for a long time. I couldn't talk about a lot of things.
That's why I asked you beforehand if it was okay to talk about it, because I think it's
Michael, I'm just going to say this. You have always been, from the first day I met you, you were an exemplary gentleman. And I'll give you that compliment, because I've never been sucker punched, only once and never again. But I can assess a man for who he is pretty quick. Some people don't like me because of it, because they know that I can see through stuff. But a lot of them do, because they know with me they're going to get the truth.
I'm going to say something. I really appreciate that. That to me is very valuable, because I admire you and I learn from you. And I patterned part of my life from things I saw you do when I was a kid. But I think we're all searching for, whether we know it or not, the real thing. If you think of the real thing, like for instance, what comes to mind? Jack LaLanne.
Yeah.
Something like that. Like, in other words, unmitigated, pure. You meet him, it's the same all the time.
Yeah.
He could even be wrong, but he's wrong with confidence. And how often can you find that? So in light of what you're saying, I can't take bullshit. I just can't. I can pick it up right away.
Yeah, my bullshit meter is really sensitive.
It's important.
And I've put up with when you're around people who are kind of like a Bruce Willis movie, they're always got quips and things and I'm the type of person that I don't respond right away to it, but I take it in and I kind of replay it. And I wish I would have said something. But now I do say what's on my mind. And I'm not bitter. I'm not mean. I'm not saying it because I want to belittle someone, but I say it because sometimes people have to look at themselves and think, well, why does Roger think that about me? Or maybe there's a reason. And I have nothing against Tom Platz or Mike Mentzer or Cats. I mean,
I gotta stop you because I want to mention this. That scene in Pumping Iron with you, Waller, and Robbie throwing a football around. Because Mike doesn't really like talking about the T-shirt scene.
It was my idea to tell Waller to steal the T-shirt.
I think
and I know Mike probably hates that, but I like Mike. I love Mike.
Yeah.
But he was funny. We were in Stay Hungry and we were roommates together. And
Stay Hungry, yeah.
Unbelievable stuff. And I noticed he wasn't in shape and he would always run and grab his sweatshirt. We're from California. When we're in shape, we don't give a shit. We're throwing a frisbee. We were running around. We don't care because we're in shape. And Arnold said that about me one time. He said in his book, he said, I wish all of the bodybuilders were like Roger Callard. He goes, because he doesn't walk around posing. He just goes to the beach. He throws a football. He plays frisbee. He's just himself.
Right.
Because I wasn't thinking about, I'm one of the best built guys in the world. Look at me. I was just having fun like a dog chasing a frisbee. I was a frisbee dog.
You weren't a poser. It was
no, never. And so I told Ken, I said, if you take his sweatshirt away from him, he'll fall apart. And I know that bothers Mike to this day, but what's the last line? He said, where's my shirt?
Dan Wiggum says,
Mike was like a child.
He was.
He was a lovely, sensitive person.
He was.
He would cry at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
And here's a funny story. I had a 53 Ford and the bands on it were and Mike and I are driving somewhere. And I told Mike, I said, this car is run by a treadmill with a mouse chasing the cheese. And he goes, yeah, and you're low on cheese. Oh, we laughed about that. And then he had size 13 or 14 tennis shoes, and he left them in Birmingham. He wanted me to send them to him. I go, no, your fucking shoes are going to cost as much as a seat on an airplane. Just buy a new pair of kids, for Christ's sake. He was funny.
Dan Wingham says he liked when you pulled your shoulders back when you were on stage. You stood above. Was that a body positioning thing to make yourself look wider, or?
I was wider. I mean, they always talk about, oh, this guy's who's the widest guy? Scott Wilson, Don. I was as wide as any of those fucking guys. And Grimkowski will tell you the same thing. All the top guys will tell you I was one of the widest bodybuilders there was. That actually made me look smaller. I had 20-inch arms, but
wow,
because I was so wide, it made other stuff look smaller, but I was not small.
Was there a technique? You said just by going heavy, you built those big delts. Was there anything else that you did?
I had naturally wide shoulders, but I did, as a kid, I did these cables where I would pull those steel cables. Oh, yeah.
What about tossing all that hay? Did that give you any type of development?
There's no doubt about it. And carrying 5-gallon buckets of water when I was like 8 years old.
Yeah, because that's not really like mimicking moves in the gym.
That's over 120 pounds. A gallon of water weighs 12 pounds.
Right.
A cubic foot of water weighs 62 pounds, which is about a 5-gallon bucket. So if you got 2 5-gallon buckets and you're 8 or 9 years old and you're carrying them, that's more than you weigh.
Yeah.
And I had to carry those on the farm to water the animals and everything else.
And Roger, you didn't question it because you were a kid and that's all you knew. This is what you do, right?
That's what you develop on the farm, Michael. You don't develop that on Fifth Avenue. You develop a work ethic. At one time, Michael Dusa, 70% of all the NFL players came within a 300-mile radius of Lake Erie.
Really?
Where is that? That's Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, Pennsylvania. It's the heart of the nation.
I went to school out in Illinois. I know what it's like there.
And what do you have there?
Toughness.
Farmers.
Toughness and big size. And
farmers. Yeah. And I'll tell you another thing that makes you tough, and you know what it is, but you'd probably never even thought of it. Cold weather.
Oh no, I thought of it. You know, Roger, I want to say, and believe me, I apologize. When we first moved out there, we saw a lot of kids come in the bar. I was a bouncer in the bar, and they all were wearing these jackets that said FFA, and it turned out Future Farmers of America. We used to laugh because I'm from Connecticut, and we don't really have that. But that's how they grew up. It was a different type of, I'm not telling you anything new, but.
You laughed at him until one of them kicked the shit out of somebody.
That didn't have to happen because I gained respect anyhow before I got beat up.
There's a lot of city boys that had their ass handed to them by a country guy they never heard of.
Oh, there's no doubt. Absolutely. To this day.
It's just the way it goes. I mean.
Yeah, Dan Wingham wants to know if you remember the Smith brothers.
Hell yes. I trained with them.
Were they from Michigan?
Colorado. Yeah. Bob and what was the other guy's name? I trained with, who's the guy I trained? We trained for the 76 Western America together. I was thinking about him the other day.
Oh, no kidding. You were the overall winner.
Yeah. I think he was second.
James Smith took first in the tall. Dave Dupree was second. Steve Davis was third in the tall. Robert Smith took second, so both brothers were in there.
Yeah.
And the short was Charles Francelet and Dominic DeBetta, one of mine, Italian guy. But you won the overall. So two Smith brothers. Were they good, big, or?
The one the heavier weight was better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was pretty good. We trained together actually for that show.
That was a pretty big show back then.
Well, it was. He came down and he introduced himself and he said, "Roger, you have improved more than any bodybuilder around." And I had. He goes, "I want to train with you." And I said, "Well, okay, well, buckle up, buddy, because it's coming at you." And he got in good shape.
Roger, at this point right now, are you working out in any way?
Absolutely. I missed tonight because I had to do this podcast with Michael Dusa.
Oh, don't miss out.
Yeah, I get mine.
I appreciate it. I contacted you yesterday, you know.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate it. Dave Dupre worked out in Crass. Dan Wingham said that. Dave Dupre, remember Dave?
Hell yes, do I remember Dave Dupre? He's one of my best friends out there.
Big arms, but Dan says he worked.
Dave Dupree, I was wheezing one night, and we were at this guy's house, and he goes, "Are you allergic to cats?" And I said, "I don't know. I have asthma." I was allergic to cats. I didn't know. Dave Dupree had asthma, and it was from the cats. But we were,
my God.
Dave and I were good friends, and yeah, we trained. Well, we were.
Dan says Dave worked out in dress shoes.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe Dan.
No, not all the time. He used to train barefoot a lot. Maybe he did at one of the gyms because he had to go do something. But
yeah,
at Gold's he trained in barefoot. A lot of guys.
Yeah, that was the thing. David, thanks for being here. You asked a lot of great questions. I always appreciate it, man. Your arms are looking jacked. I can't see them next.
Shave that mustache, though, Dave. I mean,
take it from the mustache master. He tells you to shave it, Dave. I know you've been cultivating that for a while.
Thin it out a little bit. It's got a little bit of the porn action going.
No. You know what, Roger? He has the old man strong. He's got the Eugene Sandow thing going.
Sandow going. He's got the little twist on the end.
We got to get him some Globe dumbbells.
Yeah.
So you got a big movie right now you were talking about.
Actually, I'm very excited about this movie. I never really got to do what I was capable of doing. I never got the roles because of the very specific things that we discussed, because in Hollywood, I was typecast.
Yes.
They didn't, I mean, there were certain directors that knew that I could go off, and like Michael Priest. I did a lot of shows with Michael Priest. I did Hunter, Walker, Barnaby Jones. We did plays in Malibu. So he would always tell me, he goes, Roger, you know, a lot of guys can't do what you do. He goes, you can do a 1 hour play, and
wow,
you're very capable. But this movie was written by a guy named Dan Felicki, who's an independent filmmaker out of Grand Rapids. And I met him through his wife, who directed a film that I did here in Michigan. And we became friends, and he was a younger guy. You know, he'd seen me in UHF and a few of the cult films. And
yeah, you played. I got to tell everyone, and you
librarian.
Played Conan the Librarian.
Oh, you know the Dewey Decimal System.
Roger, I'm finding a clip on YouTube and I'm posting it after this.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's great.
Well, I just did a thing for a podcast with the guys who have that's all they do is Weird Al stuff.
Oh, okay.
But this guy, Dan Felicki, this has kind of been his passion. He wrote this film. Get this. He made all the costumes. The director made the costumes for a period piece like Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
And it's a beautiful picture. It's a beautiful story. It's about a realm of dwarves who are these great fighters. They have this great strength, and it's called Dwarfhammer.
Dwarfhammer. That's the name of the movie.
Dwarfhammer. And this village is being invaded by these night beings who are kind of like the monsters in Lord of the Rings. You know,
Yep.
And they're monsters. You know, you can't stop them. And I have to train my grandson and my son to become the next Dwarfhammer, but they can't handle it. So I end up as grandfather having to go to war and fight.
Wow.
And we go after the bad guys. And there's some kind of interesting common themes in the movie, like slave trafficking and
how did he find you for the role?
Well, because I worked with his girlfriend.
Oh.
And we became friends through mixers, and I went to a few screenings of his film, and we kind of got to know each other. And about a year ago, he contacted me. He goes, I have a film that I'd like you to be in. And I go, well, what's the role? And I read it, and it's the lead in the picture. So,
wow.
And I love the character because he's a mentor, but he's tough, and he tells them the truth. Like when they insult him, he slaps them around and actually gets physical with them. You know,
something we need now in society.
Exactly. There's no consequences if there's no consequences for actions. The wolf doesn't go after the wolf. The wolf goes after the sheep.
Roger, I got to ask you this because this is almost a wrap here. We've been almost 2 hours. Went by very fast. It's been fun, edifying, interesting, all of that. And political or not, we have to address what goes on out there now. The craziness you see, the rioting, the things people do, and they think that there's no ramifications. Like they'll punch someone in the face, and then you call the cops, and they can't believe it. Where's that coming from, man? I would never have thought, in my youth or your youth. But what you're saying right there, somebody gives you some sass on the screen and you slap them right in the jowls. That's the way it should be.
Remember we were talking about the farmers?
Yes.
Have you seen anyone doing that in a rural area?
Hell no, and you won't.
No.
They pick and choose where they go, where people will not fight back.
Resist.
Right.
The wolf will not attack and be aggressive against the wolf.
Yes.
He will attack the sheep.
Right. Weakness.
So we're supposed to take, our teeth out and let the wolf come and get us.
What do you think of that?
It's not going to happen.
No.
Because the end game is not about a vaccine or anything else. It's about control. It's really about the disarming of America, because once you disarm a populace, now it has no resistance. You can institute any unjust measure you want. You can tell them to jump through a hoop and crap in a box or whatever it is, and they have to do it.
Well, they remove the ability to think independently, and also you take something like social distancing, which is really social isolating, because you isolate. That's what it is. They're isolating people from each other, and you disempower by doing that.
What they're doing is creating a stigma with a word, with a narrative.
Yes.
The handgun, the supremacist.
Right.
Like these things, like a handgun acts on its own volition. You create a stigma with a word.
Right.
And an association with it that is discomforting.
Because there's so much fear, and people fear ramifications. And
if you watch if you understand psychology and you understand human behavior, a single cow will walk across a road with traffic or whatever, doesn't really care about its well-being, and the rest of the cows will follow it. It doesn't mean that cow knows where he's going, but the crowd moves with the flow of it, like water moves through the path of least resistance. It doesn't mean it knows where it's going. It's just following the path. It's mob hysteria.
Roger, you're more world weary than I am. Certainly more cosmopolitan. You've done a lot more and been around a lot more, and I hope to keep having experiences. But that being said, would you agree? My summation of everything is, I always like to end with this: all will be well ultimately, because good always wins over evil. Would you agree?
Yes.
Thank you.
Because the will and the determination has been greatly misjudged.
Oh, that's for sure.
And if you see a dog laying there and it's not bothering anybody, it's a big dog, and you start kicking it, and then you start stepping on its tail,
It's only going to take so much.
Are you going to be surprised if the dog turns and suddenly bites you?
You and I won't be.
Well, there's a lot of those.
Oh, there's a lot more
out there.
Yes.
They're not in the cities.
No.
They're out here in the country where the food comes from.
Yes.
They're farmers, they're hunters, they're outdoorsmen, they're veterans, they're patriots, they're Americans.
Roger, your words are pointed, and understandably so. I know what you're saying.
And they've had enough.
Yeah, absolutely right. I count myself among them. I want goodness for everyone.
And the narrative will only sustain itself until a certain point, and then all hell will break loose.
Roger, I have some questions for you. I hate to cut you off on that one, but we're almost at the point. I got 5 questions, and they're just words or short sentences. And just give me a short blurb as to what comes to mind as soon as I say it. You men are real men. Thanks, Dan Wickham. You too. Dan is like in his early 60s. He's got gigantic arms, and he's a concert violinist. It's the coolest. It's like you look at him, and it's this iconoclast. It's this thing that doesn't. It's like he's like a walking oxymoron.
A real man is an anomaly.
Oh, you're not kidding, man.
The assimilation of all things that can't be categorized, that can't be pigeonholed or typecast.
Excellent.
No one knows the path that Dan has walked, or that I have walked, or that you've walked. So we're all individuals, but we all want the same things.
What's that?
We all want to live in peace. We all want to be able to seek out employment.
Yes.
We want to be religiously independent and not scorned for what we believe.
Roger, I have a question for you. It's two parts. Would you say that the average person, no matter who they are, really all they want to do is get out of bed and do what they have to do during the day or a series of days, weeks, months, years, and get to that place where they're happy? And some people just kind of go off the path and do bad things trying to get there, but their intentions are still good. Or would you say that some people say the hell with that and they just want to see the world burn?
Well, I think there's a lot of lazy people out there. So rather than resist, they follow the path of least resistance and just want to be a cheerleader. There's a lot of cheerleaders nowadays. There's not anybody you don't hear no a lot.
You don't hear what?
No.
The word no.
No.
Yeah.
Nobody likes everything. Nobody wants to stand out and stand up and say, this is wrong, or no, that's not right. Because you'll be ostracized.
It's a risk. It's a risk. And, being successful, Roger, in this country, you can. But I think people who complain, either they can't or they don't want to be successful, because with success comes responsibility. And you got to keep working hard to maintain that instead of it being given to you. And Jeffrey Vaquito says, fantastic podcast. Thank you, Michael Roger. I'm very sorry, Roger, for the loss of your wife. And David agrees, lazy, spoiled brats. And David's a teacher, but David keeps his classroom is tip top, video or in the class itself. Right, Dave? I know it is. You don't take any sass. You got those arms. I don't even think the kids now, Roger, a guy like you, your physique would not demand, but back in the day, command respect, because you look at the man, perfect posture, well-spoken, well-dressed, muscular, takes care of himself. People kind of fall in line around that. Now, I don't care if you're the Hulk. These kids don't care the things they say, the things they do, because they think there's no ramifications.
No, it's better to be feared than respected, no matter what you do.
You think so?
Of course.
Feared than respected.
But it's much better to be feared than respected. Respect won't get you very far, but fear.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that. How about both?
If you can.
Yeah, if you could swing that. Let me ask you these questions. I'll just mention some names.
Otherwise, the police would carry spray cans and megaphones and say,
"You're right."
Or we will paint your behind purple and we'll raise this to 200 decibels and shatter your eardrums.
You got to listen. I think you got to run over people in some cases. You can't give them any slack. The things I see, listen. I was brought up. I was never late coming home. Listen, I don't deal with the cops because I'm never in trouble.
You know where it all starts?
At the home. There is no home. The nuclear family has been obliterated.
Not spanking. Teachers can't discipline.
Oh, they can't say anything. No, can't say anything.
So
everybody's kung
fu. You can go in the bathroom. You're not a guy. You can go in there. You're a girl. Anything. Yeah. What is anomie? What is that? Isn't that
what is it?
Anomie, isn't that a condition of no morals and nothing's right and nothing's wrong?
Do you know how to spell it?
Anomie.
Anomie. Yeah, I'll pop it up right now. Yeah. I think I've heard it. Anomie. No, you know what popped up? Antifa. I swear to God, isn't that weird?
Well, that's pretty much, no morals.
Oh, I don't even know, man. Listen, I work from home now, and
it's a condition where there are no morals. There are no right and no wrong. Everything.
Yeah. Here it is. A societal condition is defined by an uprooting or breakdown of any moral values. Very good. Standards or guidance from individuals or parents to follow. May evolve from conflict of belief systems, causes breakdown of social bonds in society between an individual and the community. You said it. That word speaks volumes.
There we
go.
All
right, let me give you these names, because we've gone. This is my longest podcast ever, which speaks to the depth and substance and fiber of your personage.
Thank you.
I have this at the end, but I'm going to say it now. I want to thank you, Roger, and I mean this, because words pack punch. I thank you for existing.
Thank you.
And you know, if you ever sit alone, I know your wife is gone, God bless her. And, you know, my dog just passed away. I never got married, never had kids. My dog was my son. I cried.
Dogs, what we call them.
Yeah. But, you know,
They are.
what I'm saying is when you sit like you and I are in our houses and it's late and we're doing whatever, sometimes you go to that deep, dark place in your head and you're thinking, you know, did I make a dent? You know, did I matter? And I'm a guy. I've only met you once in person, but we've had a relationship doing these things on here. I am here to tell you. I only bring people of high caliber on here. Number one, I've had some suggestions of certain people. My opinion does count in that if their character or their what they do or what they say is not kind of in alignment, I just won't have them on. I don't care who it is because I like you were saying, it's hard to talk to a person like that if they're full of shit or they're kind of trying to pull a fast one. Well, that's not you. So I thank you for existing and you're still doing, and the thing is, you're still viable and vital in doing these things. It's almost like, you know, you're taken out of this little capsule from 72 and here you are, you're just older and you're in a different state of existence, but you're still doing these things and you're still helping people because whenever you do something, you make a movie, you get paid, but you're still offering something of value. And that's why the value is to the people who are enjoying it. So you can say, I'm helping paid. He's not getting paid unless he's helping people. That's the true quality of it. So that's what I thank you for.
Well, you're welcome.
And having great shoulders.
We don't reinvent the wheel. We just place a different vehicle on top of it. And in life, if we don't reinvent ourselves, in other words, we're known for something, right?
Yes, you hope, yeah.
But what if we're multi-talented and we continue to grow in other avenues?
You've done that. People are afraid to do that, Roger.
We're not reinventing ourselves.
Sometimes you have to.
We're reinventing the perception of what people think we can do.
The perception. So you're not changing yourself, you're changing how people see.
We're just showing another facet to the diamond that has always been there. Like I've always been able to sing. It's not like I suddenly started, you know, singing.
You're going to sing a tune before we're done. Here, check this out. This is payment for us right now. You two are examples of real men that earn my respect just by being yourselves and comfortable in your own skin. David, even without you guys got mustaches. Even without a mustache. Dave, Denise said it was okay. She said, I'm a little bit sexy with this amount of hair on my face, but I don't know if she's just saying that or what. Roger, let me read it. We can keep talking, but let me just read these names, and you can just tell me one word or sentence. 5 people, 5 different situations. Joe Weider.
Father of bodybuilding. He was a sweet, kind, funny man. We had some great times together, and he never exhibited any of the mean-spirited comments that I've heard about him at all. And
Roger, I've interviewed over 100 people, and nobody has reiterated any of that ever.
Joe Weider loaned me the money to join the Screen Actors Guild.
Wow. Can I ask you how much that cost back then?
It was $300. It was a lot of money.
Wow.
Then,
what year was that?
75, 74.
Isn't it hard to get a card?
Oh, it's a lot of money now. But
no, isn't it difficult to actually get it, whether you have the money?
Yeah, right. Yeah. You got to be in a movie and that they'll give you a Taft-Hartley waiver, which means the next film that you appear in that's a SAG franchise film, you have to join.
Oh, no kidding.
And Joe goes, "You don't have to pay me back, Roger." And I said, "No."
What did he call you? He called you Roger?
Roger Leroy. You know, Roger, you're a great bodybuilder. You got a great back. You got great legs. You got the things that bodybuilders will kill for. You're a great champion.
I'll tell you what, your rendition is right up there with Samir Banu. I thought Samir Banu was the best.
He's pretty good. He's pretty good.
I thought I was talking to the ghost of Bill.
I'll tell you a funny story about Joe. We were doing at the largest mall in the world in Nebraska. and I'm there, and I'd been sick. I came back from Mexico, and I got dysentery, and I'd lost like 20 some pounds.
Oof.
And I'm demonstrating these, I think it was the Crusher or some shit. And I didn't know what the thing was. I'd never seen it before. And Joe was not a public speaker.
Was there a lot of people there?
Oh, the thousands.
You know, I did read that Ben did all the speaking, because Joe didn't like to speak.
Oh, Joe got nervous.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so there's thousands of people in this mall.
Did you have your shirt off?
I had my shirt off, and I'm walking up, and I told Joe, I said before, I said, don't introduce me right away. I said, because I've never used this thing. Don't wait. Let me use it a little bit. And he goes, welcome everybody to the new mall. I want to thank you all for coming. And now here's Roger. I'm walking by, and I go, you fucker. You know, I'm swearing at him, but I'm not. It's like buddies, you know.
Were you on like a stage?
I was on like a stage, and I got up, and I just winged it. So that night we had a suite, and I'm on one side and he's on the other, and he goes, and he walks over and he takes the cover off the lamp, you know, guys when they pose.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys do that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he goes, you know, Roger, growing up in Montreal as a Jew was tough. He goes, but I was a tough kid. I fought. He goes, look at, what do you think of my most muscular, eh? I look over. I'm in bed. I'm fucking tired. I'm sick. And he's hitting the most muscular. And I go, Joe.
How do you look?
He looked like shit. I go, Joe, turn the fucking light off. He goes, you bodybuilders, you got no sense of humor. But that was Joe and I. I mean, and then if we had a party, I would make him smoke grass.
Really?
Oh, I'd make him smoke. We'd get him in a room. We'd make it. Oh, it makes my head look up.
Did he know he was smoking, or did he thought it was?
Of course he did. Yeah. I had a birthday party, a Christmas party with Betty and Rick Wayne and Tommy Chong and Seymour Koenig and Artie Zeller, and Zabo made this cake with like an ounce of weed in it.
Oh my God!
1976. Everybody was up for like 2 days afterwards. They were all like, you know, couldn't sleep. No, they weren't sick. They just couldn't go to sleep. Betty too. Oh, everybody, the whole party. But that's the kind of stuff we did. And then Wayne wrote an article about the Cal. There were several Christmas parties over Christmas. The Callards had a party, and seemed that several of the guests were up very late the next day after eating the cake, and you know, that little private joke. But we had fun, and Joe was funny. I mean, he always talk about he did this and he did that, you know. And we go, come on, Joe, tell us the truth.
If there was never a Joe Weider, would bodybuilding be the way it is today?
No,
I
don't think so. I was in Montana. I was in the back of a gas station. I got there. I was going to Yellowstone. This is like 1978, and I had to take a leak, and the gas station was closed. So I walked around the back of the gas station, and it's getting dark. And I look over and I see this guy. He looks like he's about 300 pounds and steams. It's cold, and he's throwing tires around. And I got my back turned, and he goes, "Hey, didn't you used to be Roger Callard?" The fucking guy recognized me from my back in the dark in Montana.
Wow.
I realized then, Michael, I go, wait a minute. This bodybuilding magazine is really hitting the mainstream. I mean, I'm in remote Montana in the woods.
Yeah.
This guy recognizes my silhouette.
Yes.
So
well, I believe that, because, you know, I still have the magazines. I mean, I have here, you know, magazines right here. This is I don't know what year that is, but Lou Ferrigno Muscle Builder. Yeah.
But you don't think about it, Mike. You don't think that. I mean, this is before the internet. This is for cell phones. This is for all the mass media stuff. You didn't think that if you took a picture or you did this, that it was going to be seen everywhere.
No.
That wasn't a part of your comprehension.
No, not at all. It's a whole new paradigm.
Joe did that,
Yes.
And then, of course, once the women got into bodybuilding, now you had wives, you had neighbors, you had grandmothers, daughters. Yeah. You had a different demographic introduced into that sport. And now the gyms had to have, men and women's restrooms.
Yeah.
So it grew exponentially because of that involvement.
And that had to happen because in any business, you don't want to cut out 50% of your potential market.
No. But then the popularity of Stay Hungry, Pumping Iron, Conan, all the episodic TV shows that I did, and Arnold and Frank Zane and all the other, Bill Smith, and even Clint Eastwood. He was a heartthrob when he did Rawhide because people thought that was a great build. I
believe he trained with Zane too. He trained with bodybuilders, just like Stallone trained with Franco.
With us at the gym, he would come. To the gym.
Oh, he'd come right in the gym.
Yeah, he was strong. He was always strong.
No kidding.
Jumping in the truck with him, I had to move a freaking transmission out of the way. That was Clint. He didn't care.
Well, I got to throw this one in. Arnold. You've already said a lot about him, but one line about Arnold. One line that sums him up best.
He was like my brother from another mother, but at the same time, an impediment to my advancement in acting.
When's the last time you talked to him?
It's been a while. It's been quite a while. We don't have that much to talk about anymore, except the
things.
What I am happy about is his relationship with his son now. With the
you notice that?
I really like, and I if he's listening or he watches, I'm commending him as a father and as a man for embracing his offspring like that. And I think at his age and for his son, that has to be a very special, precious moment. I hope his son realizes how precious, and I think he does. I really do. I think he's a good kid.
Just to diverge here, why do you think the extended guts are accepted today?
I don't think they're accepted. I think they're just a part of a landscape. We don't accept what's going on in the country, but it's happening.
Dan wants to know, how much did you train with Zane, if at all?
Well, what I trained with Zane was this. Zane and I would go archery shooting.
Oh, would you? Just like Arnold did, yeah.
We would have sessions together, talking and doing other things. Maybe some herbs from another country. Frank liked to collect pipes from all over the world. But what I learned from Zane was an approach to a problem like a doctor would approach it.
One strange thing, I'm sorry to interrupt because I forget some of these things. I was training with Zane. He stopped in the middle of a set and he looked at me in the middle of a set and he said, "You don't play any instruments, do you?" And I said, "No." And he went back to his set. That was it. I don't know if maybe I wasn't cerebral enough for him.
Studied the brain. And one thing that we bonded about is we both had psychic dreams. We would dream about what would happen in a show, and I'm telling you, we're scary when it comes to that. And
really?
And that's why a lot of people, when they meet me, they either don't like me or they love me because I see through shit.
Most people don't bother. They'll say to you, they'll say to a guy like you, they'll say, "Why do you think so much?" I've heard that. I hear that. I used to hear that. Some of the girls I would date, I'm like, "Well, because you don't."
Well, I will make a guy think.
What's that?
I will make a guy think.
Well, that's good. That should be embraced and appreciated, but I guess it probably is.
That's all we're training. We're not training the body. We're training the mind. The mind is what dictates how far we will go.
You know what you're saying, and I say this in a little different way. There's 7 billion sacs of cells on this planet. The only thing that differentiates us is how we direct the chemistry in our brain.
Well,
that kind of
all of a sudden there's a being that appears that draws on the side of a cave. His history of hunting, he makes tools, he makes fire. but he sees himself and he paints himself as his life is unfolding. That's not an ape.
That's not, no. You're right.
We did not evolve. We were planted here like wheat.
You think so?
Yeah, we are wheat.
That's it.
Why?
Just watch out for the group.
Why is the fresco of a UFO in the Sistine Chapel with Mary holding Jesus? What were the wise men following?
There's pictures of them.
But what were they following?
The wise men?
Yeah, what were they following?
The North Star?
A star, a bright star?
No, I thought I said the North Star. No.
Well, what does a UFO look like? Well, what happened to Moses on the mountain? He came back. His face was red.
Yes.
The burning bush.
Yeah.
What's a burning bush?
Yeah, their interpretations are different than how.
A wheel within a wheel in Ecclesiastes and Revelations.
We'll have to do another podcast on this, Roger. I want to finish this list here. Who is the best actor or anyone involved in the movie industry that you've worked with, that you had the best experience with up to this point?
Well, there's been a lot of them.
But one that just comes to mind the quickest, perhaps.
The nicest person that I didn't work with was Clint Eastwood.
You did not work with him.
I didn't work with him, but I got to know him pretty well and be a friend with him.
Yeah.
And I admired him a lot because of his naturalness and the fact that he never betrayed him. I learned to be myself from Clint.
Wow.
No matter what you do, remember where you came from and who you are and how you got there. I talked with Tommy Chong one time, and he said, Roger, I made $60 million from Up in Smoke. He said, I drive an old van. I live in the same house.
Mm-hmm.
I eat the same food. You know, you can only eat so good. You can only wear so many clothes. I can never see 60 million.
No.
I can never spend it. All it is a decimal point. The sunset is not going to be any prettier. The food is not going to taste any better. I can only wear so many clothes. That's how we have to look at success and monetary and material gain. That can't change you. If it does, then you're not that integral person that you think you are. Things can't change you. If money can change you, then you're easily manipulated.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we are in society. People are choosing careers because of the money.
Right.
Not because of the passion.
You're not getting happiness that way. I can tell you that. I know a lot of people like that.
In our era, we did things because we were passionate about them. We protested. We did this. We did that. We competed in bodybuilding because we loved the sport. Money will not sustain you.
No.
A trophy. One guy told me one time, if I was you, I'd have all these trophies in my house. I didn't have any trophies. I said, if you're competing for a trophy, you'll never win anything because a trophy will not sustain you to the mountaintop.
No.
The journey. If you're looking to the end, if you're looking for the prize at the end, you might as well quit now because that's not the end. The journey and the work are what you better enjoy. You better adapt the Detroit workman-like mentality if you're going to succeed. That's why in Detroit, there's a fist for the workman.
Where's that at?
In Detroit.
Oh, no kidding. That's cool. Joe Salatalo, who's about in his early 70s, in great shape. He says, great job. Really enjoyed this. Mindset is huge, even for an old fart like me. Old fart like you is the wrong mindset, Joe.
Stop saying old fart, Joe, because
Joe's just messing with it. Joe's got his stuff together. And plus, Joe's a friend of animals, so it's a fact. He can say whatever he wants.
He's making fun of himself.
No, of course. He's self-pity. He knows that's he makes everybody relax around him. My final question for you, and this is very important because I say it is, and projection's important, and part of good health is feeling good about how you look. How do you stay so young and vital, Roger? How do you stay looking so young? And, again, you appear much younger than someone who would have your age ordinarily.
I don't worry.
You do not worry.
Worry about tomorrow or the past won't change anything. I stay in the moment. The only aspect of life that I can affect is the word that's coming out of my mouth right now.
Right now. Right. Did you have to adopt this mindset, or were you always like this?
It was one of my 10 commandments of bodybuilding when I wrote my courses.
No, no kidding.
If you worry about something, it's not going to change anything.
No.
If it's meant to happen, it'll happen. And I'm going to tell you another thing. Champions are born. They're not made.
Really?
Yeah.
So if you're born to colossal disadvantage.
Cannot beat genetics. And I'm not just talking genetics, but if you're also given the mindset. But without the genetics and the mindset, you can forget it. How many people become, Mr. America? 1 in 360 million, whatever it is, 370?
Yeah.
That's, how many people become heavyweight champion? You're born to be a champion. You're given the gifts, but you're also given the mindset to achieve. People say, oh, it's all about ability and drive. No, it's not. Those things are all equal.
Got to have some of that God-given stuff.
And you got to have intelligence. If you don't, a smarter athlete will always beat a lesser intelligent athlete because his approach is smarter.
Ed Neves says, not worrying is a biblical principle, good advice. And that's true. They say worrying is a sin.
Well, it's becoming obsessed with something you have no control of. It's the epitome of neurosis, of a neurotic behavior. You're worrying about something that you can't affect anyway. It's like worrying about what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. Or, oh, I hope I can. And that's man's attempt to make God, or whatever they want to call it, work on their schedule.
You know what I say, Raj? If you worry about something before it happens and then it happens, you worry twice about it. So don't worry about it, right?
If you worry about it, it's not going to happen.
That's usually true. You're right. Yeah. And it is all right here. It's the battle. I call it the battlefield of the mind, and you got to be a soldier.
If you're looking under a bunch of rocks for an answer, and they always say, well, there's no dumb question. There is. There's a lot of dumb questions, because when you're looking for answers and asking questions, you missed the message that was coming through, that was trying to come into your brain, but you were looking for an answer instead of being still. And I'm going to talk again about the farm. I'm going to talk about hunting. I'm going to talk about sitting in the woods and just listening. How many people listen and actually hear what you're saying?
Very few. My
father took me in the woods when I was a little boy at 5 years old. We went there before the sun come up, and we sat in the woods. And he said, close your eyes and listen. What do you hear? I hear something scratching. It sounds like a squirrel. What's that sound? That sounds like a blue jay. What's that sound? It sounds like a deer running through the corn, and his antlers are hitting on the sides of the corn. What's that? That's a crow. What's that sound? It's a grouse. Now you go, well, what does all that mean? It means that you form a mental image, and your ears become your eyes, and your eyes become your ears. You will always hear something before you see something if you're aware, and if you're still and you're able to be receptive to sounds or whatever it is.
I'll term it like this, Rogers. Sherlock Holmes, I'll quote him. He said, most people see, very few observe. So it's easy to catch images, but to process them and truly observe them and know what they are. It's kind of what you're saying, hearing before seeing.
Sight has nothing to do with vision, and vision has nothing to do with sight.
Right. Two different things.
They're two different things, like strength and power.
How you direct those chemicals. We've got like a minute.
My point is this. If you can't be still enough to stop and be quiet and listen, you'll never learn anything. And what are we inundated with today? Images, fast-moving cuts. People don't listen to anything.
An average of 5,000 advertisements a day, yes.
You ever see a kid in front of the TV? Come eat. Come eat now.
Yeah.
They're mesmerized by the images.
Terrible.
And that within that imaging, think about how much subliminal messaging there is. But if you're not still enough, you can't decipher whether it's a message or you're just drawn like a moth to the flame. We have to be still.
Roger, we got to wrap this up. But I do want to say this, and then I'm going to ask you one more question. You've been a man who's been here in the public eye for a long time, eclectic achievements and doings and successes and experiences. And that being said, you are well equipped to offer. My demographic is over 50 years of age for the most part. People who are trying to get in shape, they're professional, they're trying to be successful, not just bodybuilding. That's only a small part of it. That being said, a guy like you, they want to hear from you. What is like a good 1 minute piece of advice you can give them in general? I know it's kind of broad, but
manage your time.
Time.
The most precious commodity we have is time. Don't waste it.
Have you managed your time well?
I do now.
You do now, right?
Much better than I did when I was younger.
Yeah.
Because I didn't stop to think about consequences or any of that. I'm not worrying, but when I do something now, I'm focused on what I'm doing. And I'm not afraid to completely immerse myself in it.
You mentioned focus earlier. I want to mention how Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, like him or not, they independently were asked what the number one factor in their success was. They both said they were able to focus on one thing exclusively at a time. I think you were like that, and Arnold was probably like that, the way you were talking, at least during workouts. Focus, right? Mm-hmm. You're not all over the place. You're not getting bombarded by advertisements and distractions and computers and lights.
No.
So you suggest to keep that to a minimum.
Success is largely attributed to holding on to your sanity and your focus after others have let go because of the mayhem or whatever's going on around them, the excuses in their mind and the distractions that they allow to creep in, the doubts, the worries, whatever they are. Your mind has to be strong enough to block those out.
Do you think it might help to be a little crazy? I mean, not in a like.
What is crazy?
Well, in other words,
maybe crazy is what we need to. Maybe we always call somebody. Well, he'll fight. He's crazy.
Well, no. I mean this in an iconoclastic way, meaning the majority is always wrong. They take the safe path. You just mentioned when people are letting go, you're still holding on. Maybe that's considered crazy.
Michael, if you do the opposite of what most people do,
the opposite.
You will always come out ahead, no matter what it is.
Isn't that something?
Against the odds? Most people are fat. Most people are out of shape.
Yeah.
People have worry. Most people do all these harmful things.
You want to give somebody the Cliff Notes version of advice? I tell them, find somebody screwing up and just do the opposite, and then your path will be directed by you.
Make a list.
Lists are great. I make lists of my lists.
Make a list. Make a list of your list and do what you love.
Yes.
For years, I was afraid to do certain things. I was afraid to sing in public, or even though I was a great singer, there was something about it that I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. It's almost as if I was afraid to share a gift. And I learned later that if you don't share your gift, you lose it.
Wow.
No matter what it is.
Roger, I'll be glad to have you back on. I hear the dogs barking.
The dog has been barking. I think the dog's hungry.
The foundation is cracking. The house is sliding down the hill.
House is moving.
There's people marching on the house with torches. I don't know. I don't know what's going on out there. That's why I stayed in here. I want to thank you, man. This is probably my most fun podcast. It was the longest, which was great. Went by fast. And we had a ton of hits. So I'm going to post this on your timeline. I'll shoot you a message. And I'm sure everybody's very thankful. And again, I thank you that you exist and keep going, man. I look forward to your movie.
And just remember, I fell asleep late last night, and I dreamed the night and almost half the day away. I just got up so that I could hear her say she's still in love and no one could take her love away. Ooh, love wakes me up every day, and I ask no one to understand these words I say. She fills me up every time I hear her say she's still in love and no one could take her love away.
Aaron Neville? No.
Luther Vandross and Gregory Hines.
I was close. Hey, Gregory Hines, I had him out here for a show once. Great guy.
I was supposed to do that song with Gregory and Luther, and I had to do a movie, and Gregory did it, and it was a big hit, and they're both gone now.
People are saying you have a great voice. Yeah. And, I'm going to this one last vignette. I posted that picture earlier, your Weeder ad with that bomber tank top, you and Bill Grant. And I saw that when I was 14, and I bought it. And
you know the reason you can't look like that.
Well, no, I couldn't. I was mad at you because I didn't end up looking like you. But now you made me happy with this song, and you were smart in the positioning because you left it to the end, which means people have to watch the entire show to get to the best part. See, that's message and market. That's marketing positioning. You're awesome, Roger. You got a lot of people.
Dwarf Hammer. I'm going to tell you right now, Dwarf Hammer is going to make me the star that I always have been.
That's awesome.
Now you're going to believe it because I believe it. And it's going to be a great movie because it's current. It was made during the pandemic, right at the tail end, that freaking pandemic. I hate to even say it. But it's a great movie because it's good for kids. It's good for adults. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm going to be great in it. And my song is going to be good too. And
that also that allowed you to allay that internal stirring you might have had about being typecast all those years. And now you're able to do your way.
Well, now I'm doing something different, and I can do it. And I think people will be surprised when the music and the stuff comes out, and it's very rewarding to me because I feel like I'm like a flower that's finally blooming, maybe,
Yeah.
And people go, well, it should have happened years ago. No, I wasn't ready.
It's all a continuum. It's not like time to retire, time to do this. That's all bullshit.
Number one rule in Italian racing, get rid of the rear of your mirror because what's behind you doesn't matter.
There's no future in the past. I'm an Italian Bill here,
I know. What's behind you doesn't matter. Don't you remember that in the Mad World?
I do. Yes, I do.
He got in, he ripped the rear view mirror off. He goes, what are you doing? He goes, first rule in Italian racing. What's behind you doesn't matter.
It's the battlefield. You got to avoid that scarring. Listen, I want to thank everybody. You guys were great questions, statements, compliments. I've got Doug Brignoli back next week for part 2. I'll probably have a part 3 with him. His book is doing really well. Thank you for buying it. Be glad to have Roger back. Maybe I'll have you come on with somebody else, Roger. If I can find somebody that'd be a cool tandem to talk. And
Frank.
I can get Frank Zane. I've done a lot of work with Frank, and I'd love to have him on here. And I think that'd be maybe I'll approach him later on, and I'll let you know. And within a couple.
You know who you should get with me?
Who?
Samir.
Oh, I'll get Samir. Samir is great.
Samir.
I did a couple of
We can do our dueling Joe Weider.
God.
He does a great one, by the way.
What's that?
I think his is even better than mine, and I'm being honest.
His is really good. I thought it was the best
Really
I heard.
good.
Yeah.
He did it to me the other day, and I was like, "Holy shit, it's good!" It's the
Do
best
you know?
I've heard.
Do you know Rick Valenti?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick did a good one too. I had Rick not on here. I had him on my old. It was just audio, it wasn't visual. I'm gonna have him back on, but he did a couple of guys. There's quite a few guys. That was like a cottage industry. It seemed.
Artie Zeller did a good one too.
I heard he was very good.
But Samir's is one of the best I've ever heard. Samir is funny. He's very sharp, and you forget that he kind of grew up, even though he was in Lebanon. He kind of grew up in Michigan. So
Yeah.
there's that Midwest kind of part of him that maybe he doesn't even acknowledge and understand.
Yeah.
You see where I'm going?
Oh yeah.
It's kind of intricate and sophisticated in a way, because when he starts talking about and analyzing things, he's very astute. I mean, he's a great announcer for bodybuilding and other things, and I love him because, like me, he's not afraid to voice his opinion, and we're not doing it in a vicious way.
No.
I love
you know
like cats, but I'm going to be honest with you about him. And people don't. They always. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. Well,
that has nothing to do with you. That's their interpretation of what you're, propagating or putting out.
Beyond that, hey, I got broad shoulders. I can handle it.
Listen, you got to be able to do what allows you to sleep at night, and that's speaking.
Yeah, I can't even get my shoulders in this freaking frame, man.
I can see them, man. They're still prominent.
And it's still hanging out there a little bit.
Just don't be like Atlas holding up the problems of the world, man. I know you don't. Roger, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. You've made my life a little better. It's another wonderful thing I've done for myself and the people. And I'm going to shoot you a note in a little bit. I got to go attend to business downstairs. And thanks, everybody. Doug Brignoli next week. I'm going to have Roger back the next week with another guest. And we've got some other people, Matt Mendenhall.
I love Matt.
Yeah. I've got some others. I got Rick Valenti. I
like Rick too.
Yeah. Only good people. Only happiness.
We're a bit, you know what? We're as close to a lot of those guys and those names as we are to our family members, because we spent such a monumental and influential time together.
Okay. Yeah.
So many experiences. And Michael, you've done such a great job, and you've put yourself out there, and that takes a courage, and that takes
I just do it because it makes me happy. I mean, I'm in practice, a very hard business, healthcare, and it's not always happy. So you've got to do something in tandem with that to make you have joy. Otherwise, you're not going to build up a pile of cash until you're 65 and think all of a sudden the party's going to break out. It's got to be now, because then it's done.
Yeah.
And it's only one shot. When you die, people, they're sad, they cry, they sing songs for 2 or 3 days, then you're forgotten. They go on to the next one. Tell Roger to come to Baton Rouge. I'd love to meet him. Ray Gendron Best, a young, lovely lady, which you still attract, Roger. See, if I were single, I'd be on your coattails. I'd have you take me to school on this.
You know what it is? It's the song.
It's the song. Yeah, she chimed in right after the song.
It's the song. That
was really good, by the way.
Well, soul speaks. Think about this. I'll leave you with one thought. Everybody sung Frank Sinatra songs. They sang the Four Tops, the Temptations, Stevie Wonder. Music is not about the lyric. It's about how the words they're saying makes you feel.
Yes.
It's a universal language. They don't know what we're saying in Italy or Japan.
No.
The melody, the sound, the tone, that touches people. And that's kind of going to be my gift for an old fart like.
No way, man. You and Joe Talo. Listen, all I'm going to tell you, Roger, but keep going, my friend. You are one of the people that make the world a good place. We need more.
Thank you. Tell that girl.
Ray said again, The song was the whole interview. Oh, no, she saw the whole interview. The song was great, though.
I like her. I like her.
Ray. Thanks, Ray. You got to come on from now on and shoot some questions. You give us a different flavor here, you know.
Tell Ray to get a hold of me on Messenger and be my Ray, fan club.
Please send Roger a message on Messenger. Yes. He's a good guy. I endorse him, and this is coming from a guy who thinks most people suck. They don't have to suck. They choose to suck. And I do a lot of things. Sucking ain't one of them. I got to go, Raj. You have a great day.
Michael. Great job. Thank you.
Fantastic. One of the icons of bodybuilding, everybody. Thank him. You'll see him in the movies. Let's see, Dwarf Hammer really soon. And you check him out on IMDb. He's in a lot of movies and series on TV and bodybuilding, all kinds of cool stuff in the annals of Michigan State University history. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week. And thanks again, Raj.